Yes. Yes. Where did that stream go? Where did it go? It went somewhere. I swore I saw him stream on Sunday. Hey guys, yeah, that did some audio issues with that stream, and in the words of Dario Naharis, I have new and better words with which to persuade you. So that's what's going on. Hey there, friends. Hey there, friends. It's me, your friend Dave of House Lightbringer. I'm shifted how I'm saying that. I mean, Dave Lightbringer, whatever. David of House Lightbringer. We're going to start calling our Patreon House Lightbringer and invite you to join, because it's not really about me sitting here bringing the light. As I always say, it's not a cult. It's very participatory, more so than most YouTube channels. I've been here every Sunday live streaming and hanging out with y'all. And I have to say, when I feel lonely and sad, I sometimes think, oh man, I don't have it in me to live stream. And then I'm like, wait a minute. That's where I go to like see my people and feel great. And so there's a lot of energy given back here, and it does feel like a house of light and information. I learned a lot from you guys, Lord knows, and hopefully I'm guiding an exploration of the story that is helping you all learn in the way that I have, learned from the story, and et cetera, et cetera. Touchy. Okay, why am I starting like this? We're here to talk about the Game of Thrones movie. And we did do a live stream about this on this past Sunday. However, it had some serious technical issues on the microphone, which I could not live with. Absolutely not. How do I sound? How do I sound? Please err on the side of complaining if ever anything sounds amiss. But yeah, it's a weird error. Not sure what happened. Might have been a Mercury retrograde thing. I couldn't get it to happen again. No idea what happened. In any case, I took advantage of this and I turned the frowny face into a smiley face. And so I went back to the drawing board, not back to the drawing board, but I just went over the notes and crystallized things. I've got our 4 best ideas to present here today. And I've, like I said, new and better words. I've got some different things to talk about than I did before, particularly with the Dawn Age trilogy. I feel like it's come a long way. So here we are. And in case you weren't aware, we've got a lot of ideas floating around in the fandom. And there's 3 which I think would really be better as TV shows that I just want to mention before we talk about the 4 movie ideas. And by the way, just so I don't tease too much, the 4 movie ideas are the tourney at Harrenhal and Robert's Rebellion, and a surprise spinoff, the Doom of Valyria, centering around Aenar and Daenys and the Faceless Men, a Nymeria trilogy, and then a Dawn Age trilogy. No, you're not tripping. I did do this stream the other day. Deja vu, deja vu. I've been here before. Nah, it got messed up. We're redoing it and we're doing it better. That's what's happening. But like I said, even if you were here on Sunday, the Dawn Age trilogy in particular has come a long way. It's going to sound pretty different. So I'm feeling like I need my glasses. The lights are a little glary. Got to get my green sight. Okay, we're going green sight. Did I see the long comment? Fenris, I don't think so. Was it on that stream? No, I don't know if I did. Apologies. I'm gonna have to keep rolling with what I'm doing here, though. So those are the 4 movies, the 3 TV shows, the 3 things that I think would be better as TV shows: the Blackfire Rebellion, Maegor / Sons of the Dragon, and the Andal Conquest. So the first 2 are really ideal for House of the Dragon timelines, in particular because the Blackfire Rebellion has a lot of main events that set up the war 10 to 12 years before the main action. So that is kind of similar to the House of the Dragon time jump formula. You might not have to recast as many actors because it's only 10 years of a jump, but you see what I mean? You've got to set it up. And that makes it hard to present in a movie because it's dislocated in time. But it really is true when you look back at the Blackfire Rebellion. And it is exciting. It is worth doing. It's even perhaps more interesting than the House of the Dragon timeline as far as the characters, Bloodraven and Shiera Seastar and Good King Daeron and Bittersteel. There's a lot of people. So in any case, Maegor, Sons of the Dragon is another one where it could even be as good or better than House of the Dragon timeline. But it really has to have room to breathe. It covers somewhere between 10 and 12 years. About half is Aenys' reign and half is Maegor's. And you got to work through the war with the Faith, which is in the end resolved by Jaehaerys. So I think that would be a great TV show run. And you've got this arch villain of Maegor with all these different relationships to different people in House Targaryen. So I think that would rock. But yes, those are. Hang on a second. Those seem ideally suited to be TV show runs. And then the more original idea that I had that I mentioned the other day, I'm not going to go into as much detail, but the Andal Conquest as a TV show, just the real quick pitch for it is that it could be a cool way to reboot Game of Thrones, the internet scene, political, literally the Game of Thrones, the political game. But this time we've got this cultural takeover. The Andalization of Westeros, it's kind of part conquest, part assimilation, is similar to the Norman conquest of Celtic Britain, where there's not a complete genetic replacement by any means. There's still potentially more First Men than Andals in Westeros, but everyone has adopted the Andal religion over the course of time. And this is what happened in Britain. So it's an interesting story. We've got some familiar houses like Stark and Lannister. You've got some that are extinct, like Gardner and Fisher and things like that. You've got these new Andal houses, and in the background is an existential threat. Not the threat of the others, but the threat of the elimination of this link between the children and the First Men. Because, of course, before the Andal conquest, the First Men and the children are living in harmony, pretty much. They went through some wars, they've ironed that out, and the First Men are now praying to weirwoods, and the children have a pretty strong control over First Man culture. After the Andal conquest, most of the weirwoods in the south are cut down, and the children are basically north of the wall. And maybe in the deep places and Cranogs and whatever. So the existential threat is this elimination of the link between the children and the First Men, because that is necessary. We got to keep that fresh so that the First Men are ready to oppose the others when the long night comes again in thousands of years. And so as the Andals move over Westeros and conquer and cut down weirwoods and stuff, it's going to be like, oh no, and there'll be these political things that will resolve. But at the end of the series, in the background, we have this silver lining of, okay, well, we had to set up a new system. It's the three-eyed crow system. So how do the children stay in touch with humans that are on their side? Well, they set up the three-eyed crow system, and they go to Bloodraven's cave, they find it, they establish it, rather. And now the Green Seers can stay in touch with certain humans or whatever. So it's an interesting, we don't go back into the others, but there is the existential threat behind the political Game of Thrones. So it's very similar to the first series. And I really think that has a lot of potential and could really just be totally fresh. You can still have some familiar archetypes. You can have a Stark that's like Tyrion, but he's not a dwarf, or like younger or older Cersei, or Cersei if she wasn't crazy, or Tywin if something was different. A Durrandon that reminds us of the Baratheons. So there's some familiar archetypes. However, it's, yeah, kind of a fresh slate. So that's a cool idea. But let's talk about movies. I'm going to clear my throat one more time. All right, so guys, the tourney at Harrenhal Robert's Rebellion is probably one of the most likely movies to get made. And again, we're not going to talk about everything that we did last time. We're just going to talk about my main 4 ideas for movies, which are Robert's Rebellion, The Doom, Nymeria, and the Dawn Age trilogy. The tourney at Harrenhal and Robert's Rebellion, everybody's talking about it. It seems ideally set up for a pair of movies. And because you can't really do the tourney or the war by itself, they have to go together. One sets up the other, but it's still only about a 2 or 3 year time period. So it doesn't need to be a TV show. It's not that stretched out. It's very bang, bang, bang. It's all happening at once. So if it was a TV show, it'd be a mad TV show, like absolutely insane. So I think this is a good, this is definitely a movie thing. So this is going to chronicle the overthrow, of course, of the Targaryen dynasty and the formation of the main characters of Game of Thrones, like Ned and Robert and Aerys and Tywin, all these people. Well, I guess Aerys dies, but Tywin Jaime. Robert and Rhaegar. Here's what I realized in the last couple days while I was thinking harder about this. Robert and Rhaegar are kind of like fake main characters. It's called Robert's Rebellion, and Robert and Rhaegar fight this very famous battle, right? But really, they're not the main characters. The main characters are Lyanna and Ned, and to a lesser extent, their relationships with all these other people. So Lyanna is betrothed to Robert, but runs off with Rhaegar and loves Brandon, but then Brandon dies and obviously is tight with Ned. And then you've got Ned, who has these different relationships with his brothers, but also, a couple of his brothers and his sister, and Robert. And then there's Rhaegar on the other side. We're going to build his character and his relationship to Lyanna, but also Elia and the High Towers and his dad and all that stuff. So I really do think that Lyanna and Ned and their relationship should be centered. These are the two people with the strong moral compass in the movie. Okay, everybody else is dubious. Like Robert's got this arc where we slowly see this dark side come out. Rhaegar is questionable, like just what he's doing. Like it's all questionable, right? So here's how it goes. The first movie opens sweet and innocent with a not at all homoerotic Bobby B and Ned broing it up in the Vale. As I said, I think that's a good idea. This is how it starts. We get hints about Robert, fathering bastards. Maya Stone would be the bastard in the Vale. And they're broing it up in the Vale. And in King's Landing, as this other note, yeah, maybe a little homo. I mean, come on, we see the Mad King, and he is in the background. He's kind of, getting unsteady, but he's not all the way there yet. But he's close. He's definitely looking crazy. We have troubled Rhaegar, his son. He's obviously, and this is something we don't talk about, but like, imagine you were the Mad King's son. Okay, so Rhaegar is stressed out about that. He's reading prophecy. He's starting to train to be a knight. He's married to Elia at this point, right? And then there's Gerald Hightower. And Gerald Hightower is kind of like, he's a villain, just like Ares, but he's the more immediate villain. Like Ares is in the background, Gerald Hightower is in the foreground, and he's essentially enforcing every crazy edict, that Ares issues. And so this makes him morally culpable. And this is honestly how I see Ares' Kingsguard. They essentially enabled all of his crap and torture and stuff. So history will say they were roommates. That's right. Would Duskendale be shown? That's a good question. You could maybe reference it, flashback to it. I don't know if it's if you'd go into it, but that's an interesting option. So, because remember, Gerald and Raymond Derry both tell Jamie that basically, when you hear Ares R-wording his wife, you're not supposed to do anything. You're not supposed to protect the royal family from the king, only from other people. So it's it's very nasty. In Winterfell, we have the whiff of the Southern ambitions plotting, which is essentially all the lords that intermarried to build a power base to oppose Ares, Hoster Tully, Rickard Stark, Steffan Baratheon, and possibly Tywin, possibly some others. I always forget one person in this thing, but the Martells were potentially caught up in this. They're trying to arrange the Tullys. That's right, the Tullys. So yeah, they're plotting in Winterfell. Brandon wants to go to war. He's aggressive, of course, and Lyanna would be potentially more cautious or opposed. Ned doesn't know what to think yet. And Ned is visiting home from the Vale, and we have essentially Robert betrothed to Lyanna. So thanks for the enthusiasm, Danny. Just work with me here. Work with me. I'm trying to sell you that it is a good idea. So in Riverrun, we've got, of course, the wedding. I'm not the wedding. Brandon stopping by rather to get betrothed to Kat and having that little sword fight with Peter. In Casterly Rock, we meet Tywin, and he's brooding. He used to be Ares' hand. But then he got the boot and he got no credit and he's sore about it. And so he is there with young Cersei because Jaime's in King's Landing, I think, or maybe Jaime's in Castle Rock. I don't know. Don't quote me on this stuff. But we meet the Lannisters, and Tywin is sore. That's the main thing. He's thinking about whether or not to join the Southern Ambitions plot. Then we get the tourney. So the tourney is where, I mean, we're going to spend a lot of the movie at the tourney, the first movie. So a lot of stuff goes down, of course. Jaime gets, forget the word, but he joins the King's Guard, right, which he thinks is an honor, but it turns out it's not. He can't compete now, and Aerys sends him home. Robert gets really drunk. Everyone wants to dance with Ashara, and Lyanna defends Howland from bullies, of course. Night of the Laughing Tree mystery happens, which is Lyanna, but we don't know that. So viewers of the movie who haven't read the books wouldn't know. And of course, that's really a theory. We don't know that for sure. I mean, it is, but yeah. So then we go, thanks, Orange Tabby. Sorry you got to do so much work today. I'm not sure what's going on, but I don't know. Wednesday brought out some randos, I guess, or something. Appreciate all my mods. And yeah, I understand being apprehensive about like, oh, who's going to be in charge of the movie. Well, look, we don't know yet. So let's just assume competent people get put in charge. For the sake of this exercise, I'm trying to give people hope because I like movies. And if they put somebody good in charge of one of these things and pick a good idea, it could be really, really good. And even for all the criticism of the show that I have, and I said this on Sunday, I'm really grateful for seeing a lot of the stuff in person that really came to life in a way that the books could never do. So I'm hoping for more of that with these movies. And what I did is I spent time thinking about which parts of the Ice and Fire story and history would benefit the most from seeing it on a movie. So I do think Robert's Rebellion will really zing as a movie if it's done right. I really do. And some of this will be on the casting. But like I said, we've got the tourney at Harrenhal. All the stuff is going on. Rhaegar is winning the tourney, singing sad songs to the Wolf Maid. Howland Reed just washed up from the Isle of Faces. There's all kinds of skullduggery going on. There's hints of a Rhaegar and Lyanna romance. I wouldn't give that away yet. And then Lyanna disappears. You know, it's supposedly shortly after the tourney. I would just go say right after the tourney. But the point is, the audience won't know what's happened when Lyanna disappears, just as we still don't really know. And I'd give Littlefinger another cameo since we've already established him. He's the one, I think, who tricks Brandon into thinking that Rhaegar abducted Lyanna. And this leads to Brandon's rash rush to King's Landing. And then Rickard comes soon after. And Aerys burns them horribly with this elaborate torture mechanism, which we don't need to read. It's Jaime recounts it to Kat if you want to go for it. I think it's in Storm. And this is basically the almost end of the movie. This horrific burning of Rickard and Brandon by the Mad King. Jaime is watching and going away inside his armor, if you recall. And then Aerys demands Ned and Robert's head from Jon Arryn. Jon Arryn doesn't do that, and instead he calls the Banners. And so that's the end of the first movie. It's a very strong arc with a good ending, and yeah, it just really seems like it works for a movie format. And so here's the second movie. And we do see Rhaegar in King's Landing. So we're Rhaegar is a character. When I called him a fake main character, I mean that he'll be on the poster. But we'll sort of like, yeah, he won't be quite as central as some of the some of the Starks, but he's definitely important. He's mysterious. He's opaque. You know, he's hard to read. I think everybody around him had a hard time reading him, and so that's the presence he would have in the movie. We would be not really quite sure, and the audience doesn't know what he's about until the very end after the Tower of Joy when we find out about Baby John. So this whole time it's just like, what is Rhaegar up to? He's reading prophecy, he's training, he's winning a tourney, he's now abducted Lyanna. It's a big friggin' mystery. I mean, right? So the second movie opens And it opens in River Run. Again, happy opening. It's wedding time in Westeros. Everyone knows those are always happy. And of course, no one gets murdered at these weddings. But we've got two weddings. Ned is marrying Kat because older brother Brandon is dead. And so that is sort of bittersweet, but still romantic. And Robb is conceived there. But on the other hand, we have John Aaron, who's like 60 something, marrying Lysa, who is very 19, I think. She's not like 14, but she's not like 25 either. She's, I think, I want to say 18 or 19. The really tragic part is that Hoster has forced Lysa to take a heavy abortifacient, the Moon Tea, in order for her to be able to marry John and not be pregnant. It potentially was Peter Baelish's baby. We talked about this in the Littlefinger stream. But the point is, it's kind of messed up. We have this basically a weeping bride, poor Lysa, absolutely, being forced to marry John, quote, for the swords, which we know she resents 20 years later. Okay, and is talking about on her way out the moon door. So this the opening scene. Then we jump to the Isle of Faces. What's up? This is live. I know it's confusing. We did the stream already. I'm doing it again. I'm doing it better because we had problems with the last one. Somebody fill them in any case, Rhaegar and Lyanna, where have they been? Well, they're on the Isle of Faces. This was something we just learned from the Justin Sweet calendar art this past year, and it kind of freaked everyone out. At least I think it did. Thanks for the super chat. I have not even heard that theory. Illyria Dane is Edric Dane's aunt. I don't know if she could be Ned's. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not good at those theories either. So maybe if people want to talk about that in the chat, but the Danes are going to feature in a lot of these movies. So good news if you're a Dane fan. They're definitely coming. So yeah, Isle of Faces. We just found this out from the calendar that Rhaegar and Lyanna were on the Isle of Faces. Presumably they would have gone there right after the abduction because it's right by Harrenhal. Tower of Joy is a ways south. So they don't go to the Tower of Joy and like come back. They go to the Isle of Faces and then they leave. And the key to that is that Howland Reed was on the Isle of Faces before the tourney, and then he is with the Starks and with Lyanna in the tents when Rhaegar and Lyanna would be secretly meeting. So it seems like if Rhaegar and Lyanna went to the Isle of Faces, they would have gotten that idea from Howland, who just came there. And the important part about this, of course, is as we've seen with House of the Dragon, they are choosing to emphasize the Children of the Forest role in all of these movies, even in all of these shows. Even House of the Dragon is about the Targaryens, but they have played up the Children of the Forest. They've showed us a Green Man. They gave us Alice Rivers and heavy Weirwood involvement and all that stuff. So we're getting this idea, and I think this is consistent with the books, that the old gods are guiding a lot of this stuff. Because remember, the Ghost of the High Heart was guiding House Targaryen and who they married and the birth of the prince that was promised. And she's potentially a child of the forest or part child of the forest. And in fact, on the Isle of Faces, when Rhaegar and Lyanna were there, probably would be Howland Reed and potentially the Ghost of the High Heart. The Ghost of the High Heart was at Summerhall when Rhaegar was born. She is tied to Rhaegar. So I don't see why she might not have been here. The old gods are trying to get involved with Rhaegar and Lyanna. That's why they're on the Isle of Faces. So I don't know what we'll see there. Dream montages, like I said, Howland or the Ghost, or Green Men or whatever. But they're doing magic stuff there of some kind. And this is a big shock when we see it, obviously. Then their love story, essentially the RLJ love story, moves to the Tower of Joy. And along the way in these two locations, I assume they would be backfilling the mystery of the Night of the Laughing Tree. So now we think Lyanna is awesome because we figure out, oh, she was that mystery knight. We didn't know that before, you know? So that's cool. We're respecting Lyanna more. We think she's awesome. And yeah, they're explaining, sorry guys, I'm just pulling on my tabs here, just stimming away. So yeah, we see this old god's involvement. Whatever mysteries about the tourney and the love story are essentially being revealed through conversations and stuff like that. So As this is happening, is the mic weird or is it just me? Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Do tell me if the mic is weird. I don't want it to be weird. I checked the sound right before I streamed. I would be upset if it's messed up. Last time it was all the S and TH sounds. Oh, don't screw with me like that. All the S and TH sounds were overdriven. So it almost sounded like I had a lisp, but like a computerized lisp. It was very strange and unpleasant. So as long as you're not hearing anything like that. Okay. And so, yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. You're all beautiful, and I'm sure you all sound great too in your homes. Thanks for the encouragement. And so the RLJ love story, it's moving around. And in the counter to that now is the war. We've gone from the wedding to the war. And Robert has this dramatic thing where he breaks out of the Vale and fights his way through Goldtown and storms the walls. And that's where he gets this legend. So his very first battle, he storms the walls with his hammer and remember, oh, Robert. So Robert, it just like, oh, you gotta say it in the King Robert voice. So yeah, that's happening. The Battle of the Bells, where Robert defeats 3 armies in one day. John Connington, like I said, didn't have his What Would Tywin Do bracelet yet. And so he didn't burn down the entire town in order to catch Robert because he wasn't a psychopath, I guess, or whatever. And so, yeah, Robert escapes. Robert wins. John Con is disgraced. He's a minor character, whatever. Just a cool cameo for people that are into John Con. And Aerys' insanity is getting worse. And Ned is also kicking ass too in some of these battles. But yeah, Aerys' insanity is getting worse in King's Landing. Jaime would be the focal point here. He's watching all this happen. He's watching the pyromancers make preparations to burn something down. And yeah, Aerys at some point is threatening to take people hostage. If you remember, he's threatening to take Elia hostage to force the compliance of the Dornish. So there's signs of destabilization. And we're in Jaime's head a little bit here. Gerald Hightower is sent to get Rhaegar from the Tower of Joy by Aerys. Because if you remember, Arthur Dayne and Oswell Went are with Rhaegar's party. And I'm wondering if maybe Ashara Dayne is there too in the party. I would go ahead and do that if you're going to do Ashara Dayne. Why not? But yeah, Gerald Hightower of the 3 Kingsguard that Ned finds at the Tower of Joy, Gerald Hightower alone was not with Rhaegar. He was sent there by Aerys. So again, villain status, sent there to haul him back and make him go fight the war or whatever. So, this happens. Rhaegar bids tearful farewell to Lyanna. He visits King's Landing, has that conversation with Jaime about changes being made, if you want. But the main thing is he heads to the Trident and has this battle with Robert and, of course, dies tragically. So this is a big action scene in the movie, the death of Rhaegar. For the people who don't know the story, this will be a real gut punch. You're like, oh, okay. Because you're starting to not like Robert at this point. Remember, he got drunk at the tourney and he's just, he's fathering bastards. Some people will like him, but I think he should be an on the fence character at this point. In any case, we have Robert and Rhaegar, the Battle of the Trident. That's followed by the sack of King's Landing. And as Jaime is in King's Landing, there is this looming shadow of Tywin's army approaching. Varys, if you remember, tricks Aerys into opening the gates and letting Tywin in, thinking that he's there to help, and Tywin viciously sacks the city. And so here's another one where it's like, wait, who are the good guys, right? And this leads up to then Aerys ordering Hallyen, his pyromancer hand of the king, to set fire to the city and make it his funeral pyre. And that's when Jaime kills him, which is an incredible moment. Very morally complex to see that one play out on screen. Then we have the Ned and Jaime scene in the throne room where Ned finds Jaime sitting on the throne with the bloody sword. And at this point, again, the audience wouldn't know if who's planning to be, the king is dead. Like, who's going to be king now? Is it Jaime? Is it Ned? And that's the tension of the scene. And Ned is sort of judging Jaime And this is the birth of the Kingslayer. Instead of Jaime telling Ned what he sort of explaining, oh, he's going to burn down the city, he doesn't do that. Because he feels judged by Ned, Jaime's got this pride complex, and so he doesn't like plead his own case, and he just lets people think what he. It's weird. We can get into Jaime's psychology another time, but this is the birth of the Kingslayer. Okay, this is followed closely by the sack. During the sack, I guess it is when Elia and her children are killed in the Red Keep, brutally killed. And so the corpses of the children are presented to Robert, who's on the throne now, and Ned and Robert fight over this. And so here's we see the creation of Ned Stark, the honorable Ned Stark, who's like, no, we're not going to, over the corpses of children, that kind of thing. So you've got, everybody's created here. We've got Dark King Robert, who's sanctioning this child murder. He's like, well, got to break some eggs to make the omelet or whatever. And Ned's won't countenance it. So all these characters are being defined here: Jaime, Robert, and Ned. And then Ned and Howland go to the Tower of Joy. They have this very dramatic final showdown with whatever fleshed out dialogue we're going to have. And after the fight, and after a lot of people, because remember, Ned and Howland and 5 others, and it's only Ned and Howland that live. And then there's the promise me Ned moment. So this reunion of Starks, kind of how Starks are. They get murdered and busted up, and then they come together at the end. So that's what we have: Ned and Lyanna connecting. And we've got finally Ned being able to ask Lyanna what in the world she was doing. And she can share about the prince that was promised. Promise me, Ned, you've got to take care of my son. He's important for the future of the world. Not only did Rhaegar dream it, I talked about this in my RLJ videos. I strongly suspect Lyanna had Skin Changer or Green Seer ability. And if she went to the Isle of Faces, then I'm guessing she had dreams herself. I don't think it's all Rhaegar convincing her. I really do think someone like Lyanna has a lot of agency. We see that all through her story. And there's no reason she wouldn't have the gift, because her son Jon has the gift and all the Stark kids have the gift. The gift is latent in all these Starks. It's awakened by the direwolves. And so I'm guessing if you visit the Isle of Faces and hang out with weirwood trees and green men, that could also awaken your gifts. So I did a live stream about this to follow up on the RLJ videos called Was Lyanna a Green Seer or a Warg? So check that out if you're curious. I think it's at least very possible. So that's the way I would go, because again, I think it makes more interesting. It just makes it more interesting. So whatever. They have this moment. We have baby Jon. We finally understand what Rhaegar and Lyanna were up to. And here, poor old Ned taking on this burden. And there's, some acknowledgement of what it's going to cost him. He just got married to Catelyn. He's got a young son, and he's going to have to tell her that he's had a bastard. And so we see the beginning of this burden that he's got to take. Incredible movies, very strong. I don't know how anybody would be against these. Have whatever opinion you want, obviously, in the chat. But I mean, that's high drama. This is incredible stuff that George has sketched out here, and I would love to see it come to life. It's a lot of acting and personal drama. There's a lot of action too, on different scales, and there's sword fights, big battles, personal battles in the middle of the big battle. I mean, the Robert Rhaegar is very, Hector and Achilles. I mean, you're going to spend 20 minutes doing that, 15 minutes doing that fight. So, Fenris, yeah, no, that's absolutely. You're talking about Baelor of the Evil Eye, and yeah, I talked about this. You should check out my very old live stream called A Baelish Bard. I talked about all the Baelor influences, and yes, I think the Isle of Faces is influenced by that myth. It's a little far afield for me to talk about today, but yes, absolutely. So let's go. Oh, so here's the spinoff. I promised a spinoff. Rise of the Spider. It's not as exciting because I already spoiled the surprise on Sunday, but this is from Dandy B. Caught in the Discord. And this is young Varys and Illyrio, rags to riches mob movie style. So they're starting off as lovable thieves and rogues and cut purses coming up from nothing and uniting to save their lives, forming a friendship. But they are it's escalating in tension as it goes, and as they get hired for the mob and double crossed for the mob, and eventually take over the mob activities in Pentos. They visit Bravos and Volantis and probably King's Landing. So yeah, it's a more contained movie. That's why I say spin-off. You do these bigger ones, and then it's like, oh, look at this. It's kind of fun. It's not as ambitious, but maybe it'll be more fun and zingy with the characters, because you really just have to get those Varys and Illyrio castings right. And it's Sopranos, it's like Godfather. Yeah, it's got all these elements. Thieves and rogues are always fun. Mob stuff is fun. They're kind of anti-heroes because they're really going to start killing a lot of people. So yeah, I think this is an easy one to do. And the other plot element you can have is the Blackfire element. Of course, the Blackfire theory says that Sarah Targaryen, or Sarah Blackfire, I wrote Targaryen, Sarah Blackfire, she's the last of the female line of Blackfire. Her brother is Varys, and she marries Illyrio. So Varys is a eunuch. He can't have any children. So Sarah is the last Blackfire. The line only continues through her and Illyrio and their child, Fagon. That's who Fagon is. This is Fagon Blackfire theory. So the thing about Sarah Targaryen is the Blackfires have fallen in such a bad state that she's in a brothel when Illyrio finds her in Lys, and he takes her out and marries her, which is kind of sweet. It could be, anyways, depending on how you want to play it. Um, so that's I would probably involve that story. And because the birth of Fagon is like this really ominous moment, kind of, it's like, oh, this is going to lead to a lot. So yeah, you could set that up. And then at the end of the movie, Varys and Sarah is my Roman Empire Danny Dino. Well, I'm glad you like this idea better. That's cool. I mean, it's the attractive thing about this movie is that it's pretty blank template. You can't kill Varys and Illyrio, and at the end, Varys should be installed as Aerys' spy master in King's Landing. That's young Aerys, not crazy yet. He was very promising when he was young. Tywin is his hand, so we see young Tywin. And this makes it a good spin-off, because at the end of the movie, we're meeting the characters from Robert's Rebellion, but they're younger. So we see young, promising Aerys and Tywin as his hand, and Varys being installed as the spy master. What could go wrong? But other than that, anything can happen. So pretty blank slate. Be a really fun movie. So again, shout out to Dandy BK. This is a great one. I had fun developing this, such as I did. Not too far, but yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, hang on a sec. So, Doom of Valyria. This one would be chronicling the downfall of Valyria, of course, and the many forces on all sides that brought it about. This is kind of Fall of Rome vibes. There's a lot of rebel factions, a lot of politics and revolutionary undertones, and one family caught in the middle. Very much so. And that would be Aenar's family with Daenerys. This is also the rise of the Faceless Men, and I even said if you split this into two movies, you could call one of them Rise of the Faceless Men and the other one The Doom of Valyria or something else. But I didn't bother trying to figure out where you would split it. I'm just going to talk about the whole plot. You guys let me know if you think there should be one or two movies. But the cool thing about this is it has a gigantic shock twist ending, as well as establishing House Targaryen and the Faceless Men and the downfall of Valyria. So this is a lot of backstory establishment here. We also are going to establish House Velaryon, which is now cooler because of House of the Dragon. Greyjoy Rebellion movie. Frank Delane as Stannis, Jorah and Thoros in Battle Victarion, and Prime King Robert. Oh, that could be another spin-off. Yeah, I could see what you're saying there. That could be another spin-off. I'd have to think about that to decide if I think there'd be enough there. But yeah, I see the idea. So Doom of you might have gotten enough Robert after these two movies, but we'll see. And in case I didn't sort of punch that one home, like Robert and Ned start off as these tight friends, but they've essentially grown apart through the movie. So it's a little bit of a bittersweet tone. We've put this king on the throne, but he's no longer in our good graces, and Lyanna's dead. So it's a little bit of a Greek tragedy. We killed the Mad King and the war is over, but man, so that's a really complex one in tone. These all have different tones, all four of these movie projects, to be honest. So the Doom of Valyria is definitely highly tragic and very morally complex, but in a totally different way. Oh my God. So let me explain, in case you're not hip to this. Yeah, shock twist ending. This also, the other thing about the Doom of Valyria is that this movie is going to have a highly relatable feeling of being powerless against a giant corrupt system. Not going to add any political commentary there, but I think on the left and the right, probably in countries all around the world, people will be able to relate to this idea that there is this big corrupt system causing global warming and sweatshop labor and exploitation and whatever else you want to talk about. How do we stop it? I have no idea. Where do we even begin? And this is the problem with dealing with Valyria, is they are so invincible. Okay, so this starts with a theory of mine, which I think is correct. I mean, the point of theories is that if you get a theory right, it's not something you created. It's something you figured out that George created. So, like, I always feel weird saying my theory as if I thought of it. Hopefully, I'm just cracking the code of what the mystery of the Doom that George has left for us. But my angle on the Doom turns out to be a really good plot for a movie, more or less. So, whether or not this is right, this is my pitch for the movie. And it starts with the Doom was an inside job theory. So, what we know about the Doom is that the Faceless Men take credit for it. They flat out tell Arya that they gave the gift to the Valyrians, which means they killed them. Because, of course, they first tell Arya that they gave the gift to the slaves. And she's like, really? Why not the masters? And they're like, oh, yeah, no, we got around to that too. So, separately, the Maesters in the World of Ice and Fire, speculating about the Doom, say, well, perhaps it was the assassination of too many of the Valyrian mages who banked the fires of the 14 Flames because of internecine Valyrian politics. Okay. And that tells us a little bit about how Valyria works. How do you build a 5,000-year stable empire on top of a volcanic mountain chain? You have fire mages bank the fires, which means they're keeping them in equilibrium. Because, of course, volcanoes usually work by swelling up and then blowing and collapsing and then gradually swelling up again. So if you have enough fire mages, you can just keep it on a simmer. And then it's stable and your cities don't blow up. That means, however, if you were to assassinate all of these mages at once, or enough of them, then the volcanoes would suddenly destabilize and they might all go off at once. And that's what the Doom is, all the volcanoes in a chain going off at once, which is kind of unnatural. So it tells you something weird happened. So you have two pieces of the puzzle here. You have this idea that the Faceless Men say they did it, and the Maesters say, well, if you killed the mages, that might do it. Maybe the Valerians were assassinating each other, and that's how it happened. Well, okay, maybe, but the Faceless Men, what are they good at? They're good at assassinations. So how would the Faceless Men cause the Doom? That's how they would kill the mages. So it all makes sense. That part fits together. Almost everyone agrees the Faceless Men caused the Doom by killing the mages. That's not even my theory. That's kind of headcanon of the fandom. But the continuation comes from Septon Barth, who talks about a Valyrian prophecy that said that the Lannister gold, the gold of Casterly Rock, will destroy Valyria. And so this is speculative. Why did the Valyrians never conquer Westeros? Why did they stop at Dragonstone? Maybe it was because of this prophecy, and they scoff at it. But what is that? Like, George is always doing something when he gives us the prophecy. So how could Lannister gold destroy Valyria? Well, Here's how. The Lannisters paid a whole bunch of gold to some Valyrians to buy the sword Brightroar sometime in the century right before the Doom. Now, we are told that in the century before the Doom, Valyrian steel began to flow more heavily into Westeros as all the nobles were buying it up. And this is when Ned bought ice right before the Doom. So where are they buying that from? They're buying it from Dragonstone. We're told Dragonstone was set up as a trading outpost and that the Valyrians, Celtigars, and Targaryens dominated the Narrow Sea trade. So this means that the gold the Lannisters paid for Brightroar, that wasn't an audio glitch. I can't blame the mic on that one. That was my fault. The gold that they paid for Brightroar, which was enough to buy an army, which the Faceless Men are like an army, it would have been sitting in the coffers on Dragonstone. They either bought it from Aenar or they bought it from the people on Dragonstone before Aenar. Okay. And so what that means is that Aenar has the gold that is supposed to destroy Valyria. And so this is where we get the theory. Well, what if Aenar paid the Faceless Men? Because he moved to Dragonstone 12 years before the Doom. Did he do that to avoid the Doom? Or did he move to Dragonstone and then pull off the Doom? And I think there are a lot of other clues about this, including the precedent of Elric of Melniboné. Melniboné being like Valyria, Elric passes judgment on his own corrupt civilization and helps bring about its downfall. So if George is running with that idea, it should be a Valyrian that helps bring about the downfall of Valyria. And here it all fits together. Aenar taking the gold from the sale of Brightroar, paying the Faceless Men, and the Faceless Men pulling off the Doom. So this is a movie, folks. Let me scroll up here. And the whole thing about this, it's a shocking act for a Valyrian to destroy their own empire. But inevitably, as I made the point in my videos, the Doom was an inside job and the Doom was an abolition. It is inevitable that in any corrupt government or nation or empire, there are always going to be people who oppose the evil of what's going on. There's going to be protesters. And so if you're a reformer in the Valyrian government or empire, they got the 40 families and all that stuff, you're trying to persuade people, but like, it's probably hard to gain any traction. The Valyrians are dominating the world with their dragons. No one can oppose them. Why should they stop, right? So at some point, someone might conclude the only way to stop another 5,000 years of genocide, depopulation, horrible slavery, blood magic experiments like Agassos, all that stuff. The only way to stop it is to kill all the dragons at once. You can't fight the dragons. The Rhoynar tried. Nobody can fight them. So you have to do something more clever. And so here we have the Doom. So I'm saying that Aenar is an abolitionist. He's someone who's like, well, this is the only thing we can do. And so he pulled it off, and it's very shocking. And so here's how the movie goes. We've got this initial political tension of reform versus revolution. And everybody's familiar with this. When you have a corrupt government, everyone argues, well, can we fix it from the inside, or do we kind of need to start over? Do we need to make Molotov cocktails or organize third parties, let's say? Work within the party or outside the party, that kind of thing. So that's the basic political dynamic. The Faceless Men, again, the Faceless Men are forming here. They're not the Faceless Men yet, but the people who become the Faceless Men are on the revolutionary side. They are going to be against, obviously, they're going to come to make the decision to pull off the Doom. So they are revolutionaries in training. I was imagining with Maynard James Plum, my brainstorming partner, that perhaps the Faceless Men are being the proto-Faceless Men. They're not Faceless Men yet, sorry. They're not doing, well, they're learning how to do stuff. And they're learning how to do stuff because they're being hired by Valyrian nobles. Valyrian nobles are hiring assassins to kill each other, just like the Maesters talked about. So here we're tying all the stories about the Doom together, right? So these assassins that the Valyrians are using to kill each other, well, the assassins start growing a conscience and realizing how much power they have. maybe they discover the face changing magic somewhere in here, right? And so they begin to have these revolutionary aspirations. These are the proto-faceless men. There would also be Relorists floating around. They would be enthusiastic for the Valerian Empire. They, fires, yay, fire, right? So they're on the enthusiastic Valerian side, or maybe a little bit of the reform side, but they're definitely not against Valeria. So then we have Daenerys the Dreamer, Targaryen. She is a young revolutionary because, of course, she is. She's a punk teenager. This is just the way it needs to be. So we see her at the beginning. She is committing empty acts of rage, vandalism, I don't know, stuff that doesn't do anything, but shows us that she's pissed off. Just doesn't know where to put it yet. She starts getting caught up, of course, with these other revolutionaries, the proto-faceless men out there on the mean streets. And later she'll connect them with Aenar, but we'll get to that. So Daenerys gets arrested. This is a big thing. The faceless men pull off one of their first assassinations of a Valyrian noble that they did, okay? Or something like that. Daenerys gets arrested. This brings disgrace to Aenar because Aenar is a reformer and he's already getting unpopular because he's haranguing everyone about how genocide is bad and stuff. And so, yeah, he's losing traction. His wife is a gung-ho Valyrian, maybe a Relorist, Salice Baratheon Redux, if you will. And Daenerys' arrest brings incredible disgrace and puts pressure on the family to think about leaving. They're fallen here. I was wondering maybe Daenerys will get broken out of jail by Aenar, her loving father, or by proto-faceless men. Who knows? It's details. But she claims Balerion and has the Dream of the Doom right afterwards. So now Aenar, he's finally listening to his daughter. Because remember, Aenar's a reformer. No, honey, you don't understand. Valeria's great. It can be saved. No, Dad, we've got to burn it down. You get it. My falsetto is not here today, but you get the idea. So finally, after this dream, he's now a little bit scared and he's listening to her. He's like, okay, well, you went and got us disgraced too. So let's go ahead and flee. And so they flee reluctantly crouched at the starting line. Boo-doo-dee-doon-doon. And here's the thing. Enter the Velaryons and Celtigars. They are already on Claw Isle and Driftmark before the Targaryens come to Dragonstone. So when they come out there, they're like, oh man, we've been kicked out of Valyria. This sucks. But it's like, oh, look at the new neighbors. They're kind of interesting. And so these Velaryons and Celtigars, they have their own reasons for already leaving Valyria. Maybe they're against things too. And so their opinions start to shape Aenar, who's moving from a reformer to somebody who's actually going to pull off the doom, which the audience doesn't see coming because most of the audience hasn't watched my videos. I'm not that popular. And so essentially what happens is we're meeting the Velaryons, which is cool because we know them from the show. Daenerys the Dreamer probably has a romance with the Velaryons because the Targaryens and Velaryons start intermarrying in this time. Daenerys, we might even know. Can somebody look up who Daenerys the Dreamer marries? Was it even a Velaryon? It might have been by chance. I don't know. See if it's in there. Anyways, it could be. The point is, we see the Westerosi nobles buying the Valyrian steel. Bright Roar, Stark stops by to buy ice. Cool cameo. Bright Roar is sold. And so Google says Gaiman. She married her brother. Surprise. Whatever. I would change that. Maybe they get married later. Anyway, whatever. It's just a small thing. I'm just looking for ways to tie things together. But thank you, chat. Gaiman the Glorious. Well, maybe we can work him into the story too. But whatever. Again, the details, these are broad strokes. The details change as you actually get the story and write it. But so we've got Westerosi nobles buying steel. And Valyria, here's the thing. Valyria is now turning its eye of conquest towards Westeros. And the Maesters say this was happening right before the Doom. So it's like, oh, you thought you were hiding from Valyria. It's like, oh, because Aenar's trying to be moral. He's like, well, I'm not participating anymore. But then he's selling the Valyrian steel, and it feels like blood money to him. because it's still money's got to go back to the Empire. It's made with blood magic. So that's not clean either. So he's got this blood money on Dragonstone. He's growing a conscience. And then Valeria turns its eye of conquest towards Westeros. And so, yeah, you can't hide from an empire, right? And so I don't know who has the idea, if it's a Velaryon, an older Velaryon who's the counselor to Aenar, or if it's Aenar himself, or Daenerys, but somebody is like, wait a minute, what if Daenerys' dream is not a warning, but an instruction? And this is an interesting way to mess with like the vagueness of prophecy, because Melisandre doesn't know either. She doesn't know if her visions are things that she's supposed to help make happen, or things that are going to happen, or that could happen. She doesn't know. And so this is what I think would be interesting. They come to see it as an instruction. We don't know if that's right, but it's what they decide. And so Daenerys has these connections to the Faceless Men. Aenar has inside knowledge about the mages and how Valeria works. And the Velaryons have ships. And so the Velaryon ships, they organize a whole heist type thing. We see Faceless Men, Velaryons, and Targaryens on the ship. They go back to Valeria under false pretenses, and they turn the Faceless Men loose. And then, yeah, from the ships and from Dragonstone, you have the Velaryons and Aenar and Daenerys essentially watching the fireworks at the end of the movie. And we see this giant explosion, glow on the horizon, depending on how close you are to it. But think about the emotional impact of that. It's just like a Titanic thing. It's like the Faceless Men talk about giving the gift of mercy to the slaves, but that means killing the slaves. So that's not exactly emancipation. And this guy just he just destroyed his own empire. They were really evil, but yeah. So you leave the audience shaken and debating the morality of this action that Aenar has done. So it's almost like this heroic thing. You're watching the sunset. We founded House Targaryen. But at what price? Was that the right thing to do? Did we interpret the prophecy correctly? What will happen now? Do you think it would have to have the political machinations of original Game of Thrones? It'd be more like a traditional fantasy with a dash of Game of Thrones. Are you talking about this Doom movie? Um, I mean, it would be basically as I described. The only fantasy would be the dragons and the prophecy involved. So this is mostly a politics one. This movie. There'll be more magic in the next two, though. So yeah, again, just the thing is, nobody's going to see this coming. Like when we get news that Valeria is looking to conquer Westeros and everyone's panicking, we're going to be sitting there going, well, what are they going to do? There's no way they can resist Valeria. And then Aenar comes up with this plan to do, to make the dream an instruction, and they do this conspiracy. And we're shocked because Aenar has been the wet blanket the whole time. He's been dragging his feet against all the people who want to burn it down. But finally, when he commits to burning it down, now it's like, oh, we're really going to do it. So there you go. Yeah, no, it's not Dunish because it's ambiguous about the prophecy as far as like what it's supposed to be, whether it's a warning or if it's something they were supposed to make happen. It's not like they're doing a bunch of stuff because they know how it's all going to turn out. They don't know what the results of the doom are going to be. They have to decide that they want to exterminate Valeria, and then they do it. So they're responsible for the decision. It's not, and that's sort of my trouble with Dune. Is like the agency is removed by the prophecy, and so the way I've structured this is specifically to counter that, so that they're very responsible for their choices. Because maybe it was a warning and it would have happened elsewise, but then they went and did it. So will Carice Van Houten make a cameo? I don't know. I'm not good at casting, but I don't see why not. Sure. If you're asking me, would Melisandre be in the movie? Yes, you could work a Melisandre into this movie. That's actually a great idea, Kelly. That's actually a great idea. You could definitely have Melisandre be a factor in all this stuff. I haven't put any thought to that as far as what role she'd be playing. She'd probably be guiding Aenar somehow towards their ultimate destiny of, giving birth to the prince that was promised. Okay, so next up we have our third set of movies, the Nymeria movies, and I'm going to play music before I talk about them so I can catch my breath. Let's see here. Oh, I've got a very special thing. 'Twas a night before Christmas, and all through the land, not a creature was stirring, not even in Dorner's sand, 'cause we burnt the sweet bejesus out of that damn desert, didn't we, Virginia? No banners were hung in the castle so bare, in hopes that Nana Vagar's wrath they'd be spared. Them Dorners nestled all snug in their caves, with visions of their miserable lives being saved, but your Nana loves mischief even more than her naps, and Visenya had set her mind on sprigging their traps. When out on the sand there rose such a clatter, Balerion had found some foes on which to grow fatter. Away to the battle I flew like a flash. That's right, back in those days her Nana was a bit faster than she is now. They used to call me the Flash, and I roasted them Dornish to cinders and ash. Merry Christmas, everyone, except Dorn. I hate them. I think that was from 2 years ago's Christmas, but I just remembered I had it this morning. So, yeah, I did that. I am not the originator of the Nana Vagar humor. I saw an early meme and jumped on it, and take credit for popularizing it only. Yeah, she was just raised that way, exactly. It's not. She means well. She is a little racist. It's true. Yeah, I helped popularize it. I'm sure many people think they're responsible for it. I'm only happy to have taken part in the Nana Vagar craze that swept the nation. Yeah, except Dorn. We hate them. We hate them. No, Dorn's cool. We're going to talk about Dorn, actually. It's the Nymeria trilogy. So, these three movies are going to be called Rhoynar, Sothorios, and Westeros. I know this whole project was like 10,000 ships. I don't really love that name, but I'm not really here to argue about the name, so whatever. Marvin Martin, Jon Snow movie idea in the now thought out North. Jon Snow finds a magical door called Writer's Block, and George is holding the door. Okay, all right. That's very funny, Marvin Martian. Yeah, I talked a little bit about it. There's not much there, honestly. The only thing for a Jon Snow movie to do is go back into the whole others thing. Um, I'm gonna touch on the others in my Dawn Age trilogy, but I think this is a cooler way to get back into it. So, Seth Rollins was born to be a Game of Thrones sellsword. Yeah, I don't know actors, but hopefully people in the chat get your references. Thanks, Orange Tabby. So, Nymeria. These three movies will chronicle the Rhoynar's journey from defeat at the hands of Valyria to the freaky jungle continent of Sothorios, to the nicer and slightly smaller island jungle continent, the Summer Islands, and then finally to Dorne and the conquest of Dorne. The reason to make these movies, HBO, if you're listening, lightbdv@gmail.com, if you need any help, is that Nymeria is the only other potential Daenerys in A Song of Ice and Fire. If you're looking for another Daenerys, and this is the kind of thing you might hear a CEO ask you if you're a writer, like, hey, is there another Daenerys in any of these books? It's Nymeria. She's part Moses, she's part Odysseus. She's an incredibly dynamic character. She uses military strength, but also diplomacy and wisdom and ingenuity and survival instincts. She's peaceful and she's warlike at different times. I mean, there's this culture clash going on. The great thing about these movies, beyond Nymeria and her ability to anchor a trilogy, is that each movie is in a different environment. And I pointed this out over the weekend when we talked about it on Sunday, but Star Wars does a great job of this. Star Wars goes to these different planets, and each planet is a totally different environment, and the people that live there, the tactics that people have to use when fighting there, are dictated by the environment, and it makes it interesting and like very vivid and tactile. I love that. Game of Thrones also did a cool job with like giving us several different climates, at least the North and the Mediterranean, King's Landing, and then occasionally other things. So these three movies are all in very different places. So it's very dynamic trilogy, but very cohesive because we're following one character through the whole thing. So it's very cool the way that balances each other out. The Rhoynish relationship to the environment is a key theme through all these movies. The more I thought about it, their water wizards seem very important because first they're on the Rhoyne, and the wizards are, you know, doing their thing in their prime on the river, which is their mother. Genera Bellaris was the baddest Valyrian hottie. Yeah, you could do a Genera Bellaris movie. That's the Dragon Lord that flew to Sothorios for 3 years, and yeah, who knows what happened. She did come back, but I think she's lying about what she found. I talked about that in the Sothorios video. I actually came up with a theory about that. So I know you enjoyed that one, Kelly. The Rhoynish water wizards, they're in their prime on the Rhoyne. Then they go to Sothorios, which is a jungle continent. They think they maybe can use their water magic to make it habitable and terraform it, but it doesn't really work. And then they go to Dorne, which is a desert. So the water wizards are going to be key there too. So just remember that. And the other thing about this trilogy is we're dealing with many different views on the topic of conquest, which is a big part of Ice and Fire in any era. So first we have the Valyrian conquest of Essos and the Rhoynar, which is obviously bloodthirsty and awful. Then we have the Rhoynar considering and potentially trying to conquer some of Sothorios and failing. And then we have the Dornish conquest, which is undertaken very differently than the Valyrian conquest. And I've got some pretty interesting ideas about how to make that more complex. So a lot of different angles on the topic of conquest and colonization and things like that, which are always emotionally charged topics. So the first movie, Nymeria Rhoynar. Yes, Kelly, exactly right. The Rhoynish water wizards are the only ones to really do anything to counter the dragons. So at the height of their power, the Valyrians, they're kind of rude. They're dicks. The Rhoynar were sharing the river with them. Okay, the Valyrians start building settlements along the river, and the Rhoynish are like, yeah, there's plenty of room for everyone. But then it's not good enough for the Valyrians, and so they come into conflict. And the Rhoynish Empire is kind of like Egypt. It's a river civilization. They're very learned and advanced. Some Greek vibes, Mediterranean vibes, something like that. Not specifically, but vaguely. And they are fighting. Valyria essentially is like Rome with dragons. That's probably the best analogy. So, shades of Rome versus Carthage, Punic Wars. You can draw on this kind of thing for inspiration for smaller plot lines and battles and stuff like that. But essentially, what happens is Garen the Great is doing well at first. They are doing well at first. Garen the Great, he defeats 3 dragons at this one battle, and they're using water wizards and scorpion bolts. Because remember, the Dornish, who brought down Meraxes and Dorne with a scorpion bolt, they are descended from the Rhoynish, and they were using scorpions against the Valyrian dragons. So there's a thread of knowledge there. And they defeated the Valyrians at several battles, including one where they had 3 dragons. But then Valyria gets pissed, and they send 300, which sounds like maybe close to all of them. They got pissed. They said everyone was like, "Okay, hell no." It was giant hell no from Valyria, and so they sent 300 dragons. It was overkill. They boiled the river as the Rhoynish were beaten back into the river. The dragon fire made the river so hot that it boiled the Rhoynish alive in their own river god, which is horrific. And Garen the Great who should be likable. We should root for him as he's fighting for the Rhoynar, because there should be some battles in this movie. Um, this struggle against Valyria is most of the movie. So they're winning at first, then they're losing. At that big loss where the 300 dragons come, that's at Croyane. Garen the Great is from Croyane, the festival city. It's very beautiful. He could be Timothée Chalamet. Yeah, I'm down with that. Down with that. Garen the Great. And he is hung in a golden cage, suspended in a golden cage from the walls of his city so that he can watch it be destroyed and his people enslaved. And he calls down the curse of grayscale from the cage. And here's the quote about it. The men of Volantis and Valyria hung Garen in a golden cage and made mock as he called upon his mother to destroy them. But in the night the waters rose and drowned them, and from that day to this they have not rested. They are down there still beneath the water, they who were once the lords of fire. Their cold breath rises from the murk to make these fogs, and their flesh has turned as stony as their hearts. And this is Tyrion talking while they're on the Rhoyne, and they're looking at the fogs and thinking about the stone men. So potentially this is like the origin story of Grayscale, which who knows? But yeah, this is the story. So you could do something of this with this sort of vengeance of the river, the fogs, the vapors, whatever you want to talk about. Somebody's saying, OMG, it's Hurin. I forget Hurin's story exactly. I just remember the Black Blade and stuff. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, George is constantly pulling from Silmarillion. The Rhoynish do have turtles. They ride on turtles. I said on Sunday, I don't know if I would do that or if I'd have like boats that look like turtles. Depends on how high fantasy you want to go with the turtles, I guess. Let's see. Wonder how many DL's curse took out. Not all of them. It sounds like all of them there at Croyane, but there's many other Valerians. Certainly not all the dragons or anything. But yeah, I was kind of saying probably not with the turtles. They're in the river maybe, and so they're worshipped by the Rhoynar. But like, yeah, they probably just have turtle armor and turtle-looking boats or something. Maybe there's a cool part of the movie where some Rhoynish are sneaking under a turtle shell. I don't know. Point is, Nymeria of Nysar, our main character. Nysar is up the river from Croyane. So she hears about Garen's defeat and heroically organizes the 10,000 ships at the end of the movie. And that is the end of the first movie, is the hopeful note of like, okay, well, at least all these people were saved. And of course, Nymeria, she opposed. She didn't want to fight Valyria, and she tried to convince Garen and the other Rhoynish princes not to. She was overruled and still fought with the Rhoynar because she's a good soldier. But yeah, she was proven right. So, do you think Hollywood can make $100 million Song of Ice and Fire without a clear-cut hero or protagonist married to his two sisters? I'm skeptical of that. I do have, yeah, I think so, Jason. I think so. I think we can move away from incest. How am I doing? What would you think of a horror movie set in the Sorrows or Gogassos, perhaps? Wait for my second Nymeria movie. It's coming, John. It's on the way, and thanks for being a Squisher member. By the way, if you want to join our Discord chat, which is where I asked for ideas for this a few days before the stream, then you can join with the join button below, or you can join our Patreon. Either one. Discord is fun, Jacob. Come on, man. Come on. You can always leave comments, though, on the video, too. I read all my comments pretty much and respond to quite a lot of them. So, yes, Nymeria of Nysar, she was against this, but she fought with her countrymen anyway. And as she hears about this great defeat, she organizes the 10,000 ships. This is the hopeful note, and that's the end of movie one. Pretty nice cut. Second movie, Nymeria Sothorios. This is where it becomes really like the Exodus and the Odyssey. Shout out to Weesan from the Discord. Weesan, talking about, Odysseus and Moses as obvious influences for Nymeria. And Sothorios, of course, and it got worse. It's like from out of the fire into the frying pan or whatever it is, out of the furnace into the fire. Point is, yeah, Sothorios, it's horrible. There's every kind of monster and mutant, major Dr. Moreau vibes, because some of these could be results of experiments and stuff. It's Lovecraftian. It's horror, basically. It's a genre flip a little bit. I mean, there was a fair amount of horror when the Valerians boiled the river in the first movie. And George, he puts horror in all of it. I mean, he likes, so I always say this, George is a fantasy writer influenced by old science fiction who loves to write horror and mystery inside of the fantasy context. That's how I would sum up his genre map. But the point is, yes, George borrowed from the story of the lost colony of Roanoke to make the story of Yeen, where one of Nymeria's allies, well, a group of Rhoynar, make a colony at Yeen, the oily blackstone city downriver. And when Nymeria comes back after a few months to check on the colony, everybody is gone mysteriously, just like Roanoke. Look it up or watch a Roanoke YouTube video. It's a really cool story. Freaky story. Still don't know. Sothorios is hiding Planetos' greatest secrets. Yeah, you and I and Genera Bellaris know it, Kelly. And so, yes, it's this horrible place. The Rhoynish are trying to survive. They think they can use their water wizard magic, even though it's like real. It's like, wow, this is hostile. But it's like, well, we can do it. We can use our magic to make it work. We can tame it. And they're killing a lot of creatures, obviously, to try to do that. But so they're disrupting the environment a bit. And the brindled men are the major people on Sothorios. They are kind of Cro-Magnon sounding. I explored this in the Sothorios video. It's ambiguous whether or not they are mutants or Cro-Magnon, but when you look into it, they're more similar to a Cro-Magnon species like the hairy men, I think, that are just sort of had tall tales told about them. If you want to, you can humanize them. We can get their perspective, try to understand why they live on Sothorios, why it works for them, and why they don't really appreciate the Rhoynar coming here and trying to change everything, even though it looks all nasty. That kind of stuff. I mean, I think a modern movie has to do this. You can't just have monsters that are just conquered and shoved out of the way. Like our modern audiences think about this. Well, what about the orcs, right? So yeah, the brindled men could be very interesting. And even like there's still a debate, right? Very much so right now about how intelligent Homo erectus, Neanderthal, Denisovans were. There's a lot of signs that they were very smart and had rituals and burials and beliefs and customs and all the stuff. They cared for their sick, so they interbred with humans all over the place, all over the place. So yeah, however much you guys want to explore that, we could explore that. But ultimately, the point is that the Rhoynish have a lot of internal conflict on Sothorios. Like any survivor colony, they need everyone's got to cooperate to survive in this hostile environment, but they disagree with what to do. So some people go one way, some people go another. You know, some people would sail on, I imagine. And the real story of this is that the Summer Islanders essentially discovered them and rescued them. I forget if they were sailing or if the Summer Islanders came to Sothorios, but somehow, and somebody can double check, I just forget, the Summer Islanders made contact with these Rhoynar and led them to the Summer Isles. So the way that I would spin this for drama is that like there's a group of Rhoynar who have a big confrontation with Nymeria. They challenge her rule and they sail off into the unknown sunset. It turns out that they would have died except for Summer Islanders saved them. So they weren't right. But what happens is they run into some Summer Islanders and then they're like, okay, well, we should go back for our countrymen, even though we had a fight. And so they go back for Nymeria, they rescue them, and they all go to the Summer Isles. So we don't need to necessarily go to the Summer Isles. We could, I don't know. But the point is, all of this horror and pressure that's been building over the course of this movie is finally released, and we're getting on these swan ships and getting fed grapes, and there's parrots, and we're sailing off to a nice place. So that is the second movie. I think that's pretty dramatic, and yeah, it's a good arc there. And of course, there's other Roynish characters. I didn't bother to invent some, okay, because I just want to contain this to storyboarding. But there's other Roynish, Garen's brother or Nymeria's lover, who could be a man or a woman. Who knows? But these different Roynish factions that have different ideas and lead different colonies will all have different main characters associated with them. So this is the kind of stuff that a writer will flesh out when they do the movie. But yeah. Nymeria is holding it down as a point. So Nymeria Westeros, third movie, opens. There is stagnation on the Summer Islands. Okay, this isn't their place either. It's not enough room for them. There's a different culture there. The Roynish are a great people, and they need room to spread out. They don't have it here. So some kind of news, something gives them impetus to come to Dorne. And you could flesh out the details. I don't know if Moore's request, he's looking for help and he hears about the water wizards, or the Roynish come there on some other reason. Who knows why? But there'd be a compelling reason they would come to Dorne. And now we have our new setting, which is the Dornish Desert, with some coastline and rivers mixed in. This is some water, but it's a lot of, it's Middle Eastern desert, more Spain, North Africa. These are the kind of feel of it, right? And we've seen that with Dorne. It's supposed to be loosely, Arab influenced, and yeah, makes sense, right? So Dorne is a missed opportunity in Game of Thrones, obviously. No offense, HBO, if you're watching. But the good thing is that they didn't do very much with it. They didn't spend much time there. So I don't feel like it's ruined. If we go back to do Dorne, it could still be very interesting. As opposed to the White Walker thing, like with the Snow Show. Like, you can't go back and try to reopen Jon Snow's White Walker mystery and be like, oh no, there's actually more that's really interesting. You got to wonder about it. Like, that's water under the bridge. But here, I think we have a chance to do Dorne right. So this movie, I mean, I guess it's loosely could be influenced by Dune. It's not really a Dune plot line, though. But it's just a cool movie set in a desert. And so basically, pre-Nymeria Dorne is poor, and they're dry, and they're divided. Okay, this is my proposal. They are always losing to their neighbors. The Reachmen, the Marcher Lords, always whooping up on the Dornish because they just don't have enough people. They can't grow enough crops. They can't compete with these bigger farmer-based civilizations next to them, okay? Because what I was thinking about is like, okay, Nymeria, as we know, the story goes, the Rhoynar get to Dorne, the Martells take them in, the Roynish, who are mostly women, marry a bunch of Dornishmen. They burn the ships so that everyone knows they're not going anywhere else. They make it their home. And then Nymeria and Moors ally, and for some reason, decide to conquer Dorne. And then they successfully conquer Dorne. So the movie's going to end with Nymeria on the throne and a unified Dorne. But it's like, okay, well, where's the conflict? Why do they conquer? We need to develop this. And so here's what I came up with. Water wizards, like I said. If Dorne is impoverished and dry and they can't grow many crops, and this leads to them, like I said, losing and being divided, well, then the Roynish have a lot to offer. And so Moors is the first one to see the value of the Roynish. Like, oh, you have water wizards? Well, I live in a desert, so why don't y'all come on over and see what you can do? And now we're making the oases bloom. We're making the rivers run strong, calling up waters from the water table. All of a sudden we're growing stuff in certain places. The green blood is flowing. And it's this incredible revolution that's happening. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Not everybody is on board with the program. So Nymeria and Moors essentially decide, we can bring this irrigation to all of Dorne. We can provide for Dorne. We can unify Dorne. We can make Dorne strong, but we've got to unify it to do that. And we should rule because we can provide for the people. And so they have this sense of justice, and they go on this conquest, and they're fighting with their neighbors. There's the Danes and the Fowlers and the Ironwoods and whoever else. But some kings don't want to go along with the program because they don't want to give up power. They don't want to be subservient to the Martells and Nymeria, and they don't want to be dependent on the water wizards. They don't trust the Rhoynish. They're different. They're foreigners, whatever. So some of these houses, these recalcitrant houses, they are fighting. And even though they're mostly wrong, to make the movie complex, I would give us a strong character, a noble character of maybe House Ironwood or Dane, who's kind of embodying this feeling. And he's like, look, we'd rather be independent on our scrubby hill than be dependent on you guys on the other side of Dorne with your weird water magic. So why don't you just leave us alone, right? That person should be killed, and we should feel it. And we should understand that, like, no conquest is innocent. No conquest is without cause. Like, some good people had their freedom run over. On the whole, it's better for everyone because we're irrigating things and there's a better way of life and stuff. But, like, nobody ever agrees on anything. So this is how we make it interesting, essentially. And I'm imagining maybe there's like a compromise. Yeah, your weird water magic. Get out of town. We don't like your type. Yeah, and Nymeria's a woman, right? So maybe there's resistance to her because Morris dies in the course of the war, and Nymeria assumes sole command. Then there's a detail that Nymeria marries Lord Uller of Hellholt. They don't have any kids. He dies, and eventually she marries Davos Dane. So here's what I would do with that. With apologies to Lord Uller, I don't think I would make him a husband. I would make the Ullers like some of the very recalcitrant people because they live in the Hellholt in the middle of the friggin' desert. And so they would be the people that don't want the water magic, right? They live in the Hellholt. You can't irrigate the Hellholt. So maybe like they receive a carve out. Maybe Nymeria comes to a little bit of a compromise. She's like, okay, I don't have to dominate everybody. Fine. I will leave you guys alone so long as you don't make trouble for the people around you who want to have the irrigation or whatever. And so we see some amount of compromise because Nymeria doesn't want to be like the Valyrians, right? Like, we were conquested by the nasty Valyrians and we don't want to become like what we hate. So maybe there's some context there. Maybe her marrying Davos Dane, the Sword of the Morning, is also a compromise because Vorian Dane, the previous king, last king of the Torrentine, was defeated by Nymeria and sent to the wall in golden fetters. So some of these recalcitrant lords, 7 of them, 7 kings sent to the wall. So maybe then she marries the Danes to try to sew it up. So there's got to be some growth with Nymeria where, like, she goes on this conquest, but then it's like, oh yeah, even though I'm right, like, I still don't have the right to kill people and just run over people's free will or whatever. I don't know. Do with it what you want. But that's how we wrap it up with the unification of Dorne. Nymeria is on the throne, and I would have her marry Davos Dane and not Uller. And so that would be, just a cool ending, bringing the Danes. So there it is. And now it's time for the First Men movie. Oh boy. All right. We're definitely going to play some music. I'm going to change the battery in my light and I'll be right back. I promise this won't be another joke. This will just be my music. All right, sorry for playing the same one twice. I actually meant to play a different one, but it's pretty cool. And check out my Origins of Old Town video in case you did not, for a lot more of that tower. Boy, that Old Town video, gotta say, was that was a sweet spot, man. That is why I do YouTubing. That was a lot of damn fun. Thanks again to Chetan and Theo for the Isle of Ravens commission. But yeah, man, that's the video that just made me go, man, I love making YouTube videos. That's just fun. I watched documentaries so much when I was a kid. I still do, and that was like documentary style. So here we go. All right, the Dawn Age trilogy. Look, this is the least likely to happen. Obviously, Blood Moon went down in flames, and the rumors we heard about it, some were very interesting, some were like very awkward racial decisions they were making with black people and children of the forest. I still don't know if that's true, but whatever the executives saw with that trailer, they made a trailer and nobody has ever seen it. Like, they shut that thing down and we're like, oh no, we're not making that show. Again, lots of rumors flying around. I had a source from Blood Moon that was an extra on set, whose name I still can't reveal because they're not supposed to talk about what they saw on set. And I did a stream about it. They told me, green man priests, and there was a wedding during an alignment, and a moon disaster and a long night thing, and it was a Stark. I think it was a Stark maiden and a Lannister prince that were going to do these slightly Azor Highness and Nissa sounding thing. I only had one source for that. They were a credible person, somebody that I know and still know. And I know that they did work on the show. So I have every reason to believe that, but I have no way to confirm any of it. So there's an old stream from a few years ago called Blood Moon Confirms My Theories. Let's kind of did a couple of them. If you want to go look for that. But this is kind of like if I was in charge of a Dawn Age thing, whether you call it a show or a movie. I have designed this as a trilogy of movies. So hopefully this won't sound like wacky tobacco fan fiction. But like I said on Sunday, I almost didn't even do this because I thought it would just sound like wacky tobacco fan fiction no matter how you did it. I did come up with some ideas that I felt like could be really cool. And so I'm going to present them here as best I can and try to sell you on these movies. So, Dawn Age Westeros is a wild place. Now, the mystery angle of the children and the White Walkers, again, no offense, HBO, kind of fell flat on the show. We saw that guy tied to the tree, right? And he was turned into the Night King by the children. And we don't really understand how that worked. There was dragon glass. Dragon glass kills the others, but it made the Night King, and he's made of ice, but he doesn't burn under dragon fire. It's not even clear why Bran saw the creation of the Night King, right? Like it seemed mysterious, but they didn't follow up on it. I was really hoping to get that guy's backstory. Like, who is that guy? Why is he tied to the tree? How did this happen? It's implied that the children created this guy because the humans were cutting down their trees and warring on them. And presumably, they lost control of him. The fandom has theorized about this, and the best theory that explains something along these lines, like, oh, the children created the others but lost control of them. The idea is that the others are made from green seers, and once they become dead, they can skin change the dead, and that the others' whiting of the dead is actually a modified skin changing. And so the children essentially, they created the ice demons, and they were like, no problem, we can unmake them anytime with dragon glass, which we have a ton of, because the others are actually super fragile, if you think about it. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. You can pop them with one hit from the right weapon. That's really damn fragile. And we don't even know, there might not be many of them. So it's really the army of the dead that is overwhelming. And that's why they send the army of the dead in front of them. They did that at the Fist of the First Men, okay? So if the children created Night King or the others in book canon, the others it would be, because yeah. The thing they might not have anticipated is those ice demons then being able to raise the dead, because they don't have a control over that. They had the dragon glass control over the ice demons, but not over the zombies. So I don't know if that's how it went. I have my own theories about the creation of the others. They're all similar. They come from weirwoods and green men and children somehow. Everybody's got a different version of that idea. But getting back to the point of this movie, The First Men, what's going on here is that the mystery angle of the children and the walkers was kind of a dud on the show. And so if we're going back and we're going to center the children and the green men and all that stuff, my idea is to initially, instead of leaning on the mystery angle of it, we lean on barbarism and savagery and intensity and make this thing just wild, just crazy intense, because that's what we're told. The fight between the First Men and the children was a desperate fight for survival on both of their parts, and it was tooth and claw, okay? And these are primitive weapons. They don't have steel. We're talking about bronze and iron versus dragon glass and stone, and lots of animals. Lots of ravens and lions and wolves and bears being sent against the humans. We're talking about green men, not just children. So it's not just a few children in a cave going, oh. No, we're talking about killer friggin' elves. Okay? Pan's Labyrinth. This is what I want everyone to close your eyes. Go back to Pan's Labyrinth. The first time we saw the pan. It's huge. It's not safe necessarily. You don't know what's going on. It is occult. It is mysterious. It is hair-raising. It only comes out at night. That's the green men. That's what I want you to think about when I say green men throughout the rest of this, okay? And that's what House of the Dragon did when they showed us Cernunnos in the Godswood. Like, it was at night. It was a fleeting glimpse. He's walking away behind the tree and grumbling, and then he's just gone. What was he there doing? We don't know. Okay, this is the vibes. The Golden Lady adds, we're talking about people who are believably able to call down the hammer of the waters. Correct. That's what I'm talking about. So it's like, oh, you thought you knew the story, and it's like, oh no, it's just holy crap. So this is kind of like R-rated Avatar in Westeros, and I mean Avatar the movie, not Avatar the Airbender. It's a weird planet, magic trees, magic elves, again, giant ones, as well as the children. And at the heart of all three of these movies is culture clash and cultural harmony and assimilation and things like that. As the elves and humans essentially form the symbiotic relationship that defines early Westeros, where the First Men are all worshiping weirwoods and living in harmony with the children. That's kind of what comes out on the end of this, right? So this is what's running through the whole thing. Also, human possession of green magic is kind of like the football that people are fighting over on a lot of in this, kind of this trilogy here. So the first movie is called The First Men. No. The first movie yes, it's called The First Men. That is right. It's also the first section of my notes. Sorry, I tricked myself. So the First Men are living in the disputed lands and the Arm of Dorne, and they're being pushed out of their homeland for a couple of reasons. There is some greater foe on the other that's like infringing on their territory, and there's environmental collapse going on in the Arm of Dorne that's going to like lead up to the Hammer or something like that. So there's flooding, and essentially they're being backed into this little corner of the continent. Now, Westeros is known about but everyone regards it as this weird continent full of magical creatures. Nobody ever comes back from there. The few people that go. So, like, the people in Essos know there's a big continent across the narrow sea in the Arm of Dorn, but nobody goes there because nobody comes back. And there's all tales are told, blah, 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 blah. So the first men, they're getting pushed out of the disputed lands in the Arm of Dorn by this greater foe who wants to subjugate them and enslave them, and by environmental collapse. And so, maybe even, perhaps, there is a weirwood seed here. Like, imagine a weirwood trunk that's got cut down through some bad thing that happened, and it washes up on shore. Somebody touches it and has a dream. Maybe they're being sent dreams. The first men before they cross. This is a plot thread that I was playing with. I've got a few like options on this one, but essentially there are both heroes and villains among the first men. There's Proto Starks and Proto Durrandon and other people. And when the first men cross over and they're basically forced. They're like, okay, well, we're going into the magical doom continent. We'll see what happens. And as they get there, of course, the major tension of the first movie is that some people are going to want to kill and subjugate everything they find, and some people are going to want to try to find a way to coexist with the elves, right? It's a natural disagreement that would form. And we know that that is the case, that first men, some of them lived in harmony with the children, and some of them fought to exterminate them. Even within the same house, at different times, they did different things. Like, one king was allied with the children, and a different later king fought against them, etc. So, the first men have moved into Westeros, this land of magical creatures. There are heroes and villains amongst them. These through lines are developing. People's characters are being developed. Got our eye on a couple of bad seeds or whatever. In Westeros, again, not just children. There's the Pan's Labyrinth green men. Not many, but there are a few of those. And there's also giants. There's actually a bunch of giants running around. And direwolves and other things. Yeah, so this is actually, I think, this is an option. We could keep the perspective mostly from the first men, but I say, why not do Westeros's version of Lord of the Rings? Why, kind of, like, why not give us the green men and the children of the forest living as primitive versions, not Rivendell elves with like the fancy cities, but living in a society with a king and with tribes and with customs and things. And maybe we can get some POVs from the elves at a certain point in the movie. This is an option, but yeah, like, it would be like, oh, this is kind of familiar. We've seen several fantasy worlds do elves of various kind. Let's do Westeros's Dawn Age version. It's, like I said, kind of savage. Okay? Like, most of them probably want to kill these humans. Only some of them might want to work with the humans or see any use in them if we go that direction. So, the first men, here's the thing about the first men. They were being enslaved in the place where they came from, and their old neighbors wouldn't share the land with them. So now that they are in this new land, some of them are like, hey, are we going to become what we hate? Are we going to enslave these elves because we can? We have more people in some places, you know? Are we going to not share the land with them? Isn't that what we were complaining about in the old country? Okay. So this is an interesting morality dynamic. Now here's where we get magical. You guys are going to like this. It's a little tin foily fan fiction-y, whatever. This is what I got. Okay. This is what I got. So sue me. There has to be a reason. There should be a reason why the humans are, I'm either cooking or cooked, and you guys will tell me in the chat which one it is. There needs to be a reason why the elves can find ally with the humans. It's not just, okay, they're here, so we've got to make the best of it, right? There should be some useful thing the humans can offer to the elves. Obviously, the humans need a place to live, so they need the elves. Okay. And when I say elves, that means green men and children and giants. I'm imagining them together. So there's dwindling. Same question for the modern plot, by the way. Why do the children of the forest need Bloodraven and Bran, human green seers? Don't the children have green seers? Why do they need humans? And that's a mystery that we still don't have the answer to. But it seems like it's something along the lines of green seers are rare and the children are in dwindling numbers. So maybe they don't have enough green seers without dipping into the human population because there's a lot more humans. So it could be something similar. There are dwindling numbers of green men. I'm imagining only the green men are green seers, not children. The children are caretakers. The green men, in my opinion, are the green seers. There's fewer and fewer of them, maybe. So when the war gets started, there's the bad first men, the conquerors, and then there's the first men, it's probably fewer in number, who want to ally with the children. And so the bad first men, for shorthand, lack of a better term, they are winning. And they gain access to the Weirwood magic somehow. We don't know at first, but they have stolen magic. And now somehow these humans are commanding wolves and ravens and doing stuff. And they're trespassing into the Weirwood net and things like that. I'm imagining that just as it seems the original Weirwoods were green, check out my video about that. The original Weirwood trees were green with leaves like green hands, like Garth Greenhand and stuff. That's what I'm going with here. So this original continent of Westeros has green men with green blood in their veins and green Weirwood trees with green leaves and green blood in the tree. So the green men and the Weirwoods are symbiotic, classic fantasy. They're dryads. They're tied to the Weirwood trees. That's why they're the only green seers. Symbiotic relationship. That's important. Remember that. So when the bad first men have mysteriously gained their first access of green seer magic, we don't know yet. I've got the answer, but we don't know yet. What happens is that the Weirwood trees in that area start bleeding red blood. So this is the beginning of how the Weirwoods start bleeding blood, red blood, instead of green. Okay. The defilement of the Weirwood net is gradual in this movie because that was more interesting. And so, as the bad first men are breaking into the Weirwoods in one area, maybe in the Stormlands or something, we begin to see the Weirwood trees bleeding. And the green men are having trouble with the Weirwood net or something, right? So the decision is made. The green men decide, okay, we've got to share the green gifts with our humans because we're outnumbered. We can't counter these bad first men. And so now we see the answer. How do the first humans become green seers? Now, I think the answer that George has in the books is elf sex, as I always joke. It seems like different houses have intermarried with green men or children of the forest, and that's how they have the green seer blood. Because we do know it's about the blood. The elves tell Bran, your blood makes you a green seer. However, elf sex, I don't think translates super great. And I don't think it makes sense in the movie as the sole mechanism for this. So I thought of something cooler. Here's what I got. So the Weirwood tree, it's got leaves like green hands in the past, but now it has leaves like bloody red hands. So how does a human develop a connection with a Weirwood tree? I'm imagining they cut their hands so that they have red, bloody hands. They put their hands on the Weirwood tree face, and the green blood of the tree begins to flow into their hands, turning their hands green. So it's occult blood magic-y feeling, which is all the Carnuno stuff has to be occult feeling. And it works with the whole red hand, green hand magic and image of the leaves. So you got the bloody red hands, the green blood of the tree flowing into the human. And now they've got the green hands. Now, once a person does that, they've only got a limited time to live before they start turning fully into like a tree or whatever. So they're going to have to get Weirwood rooted up. And we're told that by the children. They say, the quick years of those with the green gift are few, and their bodies are not strong. But once they're in the thrones, they linger long indeed. So it's this trade-off. If you get access to the green magic, you're giving up your physical prowess. You're giving up your quick years. You're making a sacrifice. Everything has a cost, right? So, what we've got near the climax of this first movie is we've got humans making this weird sacrifice under the guidance of the elves to sort of turn into green men and understand that they're going to have to sit on thrones soon and turn into tree statues, but they will be powerful magicians and they'll be able to help their people survive and all that stuff. Now, the first this is going to remind us of Brand's experiences, obviously, right? So what do you guys think of that idea? That's something I thought of. And essentially what we've got here is the first Weir king, the human Weir king, might be Durin, God's grief, Durin Durrandon. So just like Robert and Ned, Stark and Baratheon are buddies, in these other movies, we've got a Durin Weir king, and we've got some Starks. So Durin Weir king, so after he turns green, I was thinking maybe now he can marry the elf queen. And so their children will now have, we don't need to see the elf sex, but it just will make more sense. If he's already turning green or something like that. But that's an option. Yeah, you can marry the elf queen. And so now we have a line of green seer kings. Here's the thing. The pact is signed here at the end of the movie, and the good humans have won. There's lots of battles. Yes, we do, Dave. Simmer down. They've won the battles. The green faction is victorious, and they make the pact. Here's the questionable part. In order to part of the pact is that the humans have to agree that these green-handed humans must always be their kings. So all of the kings of the first men will be people with this sort of mutual enslavement to the weirwood trees, and this will give control over the first men to the elves. So this makes sense as a compromise. Like, yeah, you can stay and we'll share our magic with you. But the green seers have to always be your kings. And this seemed like the case. All the first men do seem to have a lot of green seer and warg kings. So yeah, it's like, this makes it kind of questionable. And this gives room for some people in movie 3 or movie 2 to chafe against the yoke of the elves who keeping us down. Right? So there you go. That is the first movie. One more detail. The first Starks are found here in the first movie. The first Starks, they are going to be the children of the bad guy. The first man who stole magic from the trees in a bad way and was the main villain of this story. He's defeated, but we're going to rescue some of his children, just like Craster's child is rescued, just like Knight's Queen and King had a child rescued probably. We're going to save a pair of twins, because what happened is let's call him the first Warg King, our bad guy. Okay, he's a Warg King. He was defeated, but he had kids after he magicked up. And so his kids are magic-fied. And these are the first Starks. They are wolf children. And they are rescued by the good guys. So now we have a Durrandon Weir king. And we got a boy and a girl, Starkling, wolf pup. And the crowd goes wild. So, second movie. Let me get a drink real quick. Great Empire of the Dawn is the name of the second movie. In this movie, our new coalition of humans and elves must deal with a dark dragon lord presence on the far side of Westeros. So, the movie starts. There is a problem with the weirwoods. They're bleeding red all over the place. It's not just that one group of trees tied to that one bad guy that we defeated and sort of contained. Now more trees are bleeding mysteriously. And even worse, this is the second movie here. And I don't have Grey King. I apologize. Didn't work him in. It's lots to tackle. An entire section of the Weirwood net has gone dark. Okay. I'm imagining the green men live in regional tribes. We know the Weirwood net's kind of all connected, but I'm imagining regional tribes of elves. Okay. So let's say the Weirwood net section of the Reach goes dark, because this is all going back to Battle Isle. That's where the problem is. Hang on a second. So the trees are bleeding, and a big section of the Weirwood net goes dark. The elves lose contact with a bunch of other elves in one section of Westeros, in the Reach. So this is very disturbing. And the other disturbing thing happens is that an unnatural human elf hybrid that has been like tortured and their mind is destroyed or something, they turn up. They're a refugee. They escape from some unknown prison, some hellscape, and they're babbling incoherently, and so everyone's freaking out. Like, who is this? Where did they come from? Right? And they turn out to have come from the Great Empire of the Dawn experiments in Old Town on the Battle Isle Fortress. Dun dun dun. Which, if you didn't know, watch my Old Town video. But the High Tower of Old Town is built on top of a mysterious black fortress that is seemingly built of the same fused stone the Valerians built with, except that it was built long before Valeria existed, which implies that Dragon Lords existed before Valeria and came to Westeros and built this weird friggin' fortress, potentially before any first men at all. That's what Septon Barth talks about. Septon Barth also speculates that there were Dragon Lords in Ashai that taught the Valerians how to do it. And I put all this together in a video called Dragon Lords from Ancient Ashai, Great Empire of the Dawn. And the theory is that there were Dragon Lords in Ashai that were the ancestors of Valyria, and that they came to Westeros. I'm sorry, I'm just, my mustache is itching, my non-mustache. That they came to Westeros and made this fortress. So that's what we're fleshing out here, or using as a device. And so there's this, basically it's a black fortress sitting on an island in the Bay of Whispering Sound, which is where Old Town is now. So back then, it's just the fortress on the island. And it is imposing. There's no windows. It is unbreakable, unassailable. So it's very daunting. And as our heroes go to investigate all this badness, the Weirwood net's gone dark in this region, they physically go there. And so there will be this dramatic moment where they part the plants like me, and they look and they see the fortress, and it's, oh my God, that's what we've got to crack. That's where the bad things are happening. We don't know what's going on because everything's dark. So these are the Great Empire of the Dawn. This is basically the Bloodstone Emperor, if you want to say that. He's a dragon lord. I don't think they should have lots of dragons. I think just one. So make this like the idea that if it's only one person has a dragon, they can be a tyrant because nobody else has one. So this way, the coalition of the humans can overcome one dragon somehow through teamwork and a magic sword and a spell and a net and freaking whatever else. Okay, so that's the enemy. It's Dr. Moreau, Bloodstone Emperor, with one dragon. Maybe he's got cohorts or whatever, but there's just one dragon, and he is maybe even a renegade from his own empire or something. He's doing his own thing here, and it's really dark. He's torturing children and green men and humans here on the Battle Isle, and he's doing God knows what, experiments, Lovecraftian horror stuff. Okay. There may have been hints in the first movie that there were some sort of dark presence or hybrids turning up or something like that. I don't know. I don't want to get lost in the weeds. Enter the Danes and the High Towers. Okay. In the book canon, it seems that the Danes and the High Towers aren't first men and come from the Far East. I think they come from the Great Empire of the Dawn. Check out my Origins of Old Town video, and also Great Empire of the Dawn Westeros. But for the purposes of the movie, that's who they are. They are essentially going to switch over to the First Men and help the First Men defeat the Bloodstone Emperor, who they are countrymen with or related to. That's the gist of it. So our heroic Dane and Hightower characters will start, if you want, HBO, if you want to make a Shy, you can. This would be pre-Long Night of Shy, so it should look fancy and cool. Kind of steampunky and whatever. A little bit Rivendell-y if you want. And so the Danes and Hightowers are there, and the good people of Ashai do not know of the horrors of the Bloodstone Emperor that is being done with their tax dollars, as is so often the case. And so what happens is, according to legend, the Dane follows a falling star to Westeros, right? So let's work with that. There's a falling star or a comet, but the cool part is that it just appears once. But for this Dane, he keeps seeing it in his dreams, and that's what makes him follow it all the way to Westeros. It's not just a random comet. He keeps seeing it every night. And so they follow it to Westeros and they get to Starfall or the Reach or something. They find the horror that's going on there, and this causes them to ally with the children and the first men. There's going to be some wrinkles and actions there, but that's the gist of it. So on the heroic side, on the Green Coalition, if you will, our young Stark children have grown up. We've got a boy and a girl wolf child because we need stuff we recognize. So we've got a couple Starks. And there's a coalition forming of heroic first men, children of the forest, and a giant, just because it's like a D&D quest here. So you got to have a giant. And they got to sneak into the fortress somehow. And so here comes the Danes and Hightowers. They look the part. They look like they belong. So they're going to pull a heist style thing with fake prisoners, and they get inside through skullduggery, and then they launch a battle. And there's the Battle of Battle Isle. I'm imagining Dawn might be used to kill the dragon because there's lots of legends about dragon slayers with magic swords in Westeros. There's like 3 or 4 of them. So I think George is hinting at that, potentially. So yeah, that's the way I would go. But it's like, yeah, Children of the Forest magic, the strength of the giant. It's a little bit classic here, but it'll be fun. And the magic sword. And we defeat the Dragon Lord here. They're sent packing. Further harmony with the children is ensured. But we have found the results of his experiments. He has created green seer human hybrids. Same thing the villain in the first movie was doing. And the same thing the elves are doing, but like willingly. So it's this sliding scale of morality here. He has created hybrids, and they are kind of tortured. They're kind of messed up, but they're green seers. And the thing is, the green men are losing their ability to access the weirwood net because the trees have been transformed through all of these experiments, all of these transformed green seers. Because here's the thing. If you capture a green man and you mess him up, you're messing up his weirwood tree, or vice versa, because they're symbiotic. So Bloodstone Emperor doing experiments on children and green men is going to also transform the weirwood net. And that's why the trees are bleeding everywhere. So at this point, we need these poor victims, these poor hybrid green seers, okay? And guess what? They need like a nice place to live. They've had it rough. And so these Stark twins step up. This is the founding of Winterfell here. I should have said that at the beginning. The founding of Winterfell and the Wall are going to be explained. So there are Stark warg twins that are heroic in the second movie. They step up and say, we will provide a home, a safe place for these greens. They're going to need to sit on weir thrones. Okay. And that's how they can be caretaken and be peaceful and all that stuff. So we established Winterfell. The lowest levels of the crypts are weir thrones for these refugees to come and sit on. So now we've got the foundation of Winterfell. Obviously, the male of the Stark twins is Bran the Builder. And the woman is going to be Nissa Nissa. But that's the third movie, which is here. So, third movie. Here we go. This is the one that's going to cause the long night and explain the formation of the wall. All right. So we've got it. We're going to start off with another green wedding. Because remember, the first one, the Durrandon guy, he turned into a weird king and then he married an elf queen. So we've got something similar happening here. the Stark princess, who is a warg, this Nissa Nissa character, she's going to marry a Dane because the Danes are the new allies in the alliance. And so, what do you do with the new alliance? You have a wedding. And so, at Winterfell, we have this wedding between the Stark princess and a Dane, who's going to be well, his name is Eldrick. Actually, he's not the bad guy. But they have timed this wedding to a celestial alignment. Maybe they're trying to heal the trees, even something like that. But oopsie, oopsie, oopsie. The groom, Eldrick, has a jealous younger brother, Azor Ahai, and he's pissed that he wasn't chosen to wed the Stark princess. Okay, and so he also, more importantly, he craves magical power, and he has been corrupted because he's a Dane. He's been corrupted by the same meteor that was corrupting the Bloodstone Emperor. Because remember, we defeated the Bloodstone Emperor. Well, let's say we captured his black meteor and took it back to Starfall for safekeeping. But, Sauron, like the ring, it is whispering in the dark. And so one of these Danes has been corrupted. So there's two brother Danes, Eldrick and Azor. And Eldrick is the one, he's the groom. We like him. He's going to marry the Stark princess. But Azor crashes the wedding and pulls the abomination card. And that's what this means. So, remember, I've been saying there's all kinds of weird magic you can do by interfacing with the weirwood trees, right? You cut your hands, touch the tree, and take the green blood or whatever. So the Azor Ahai Nissa myth, of course, is Azor Ahai stabs Nissa Nissa with his sword to temper the steel or whatever. I don't think we need more murder. We don't need to stab another woman. Like after Daenerys, I just don't think we need to do that again. And so here's what I came up with. If these green seers are symbiotic with the trees, why isn't Azor Ahai stabbing the tree instead of the woman? If he stabs the tree, that's going to be potentially killing all kinds of green men that are connected. So the murder will be more like magical and remote. So here's how it goes down, all right? Imagine Azor Ahai crashing the wedding, right? He takes his sword. It's a meteor sword. Of course, that's part of the important part. This is a cult Lovecraftian implement that's corrupted him. He starts carving the Winterfell weirwood tree face, which is not bleeding yet. It's a green face. And as he carves the face, all the green men attending the wedding start bleeding from the eyes and stuff. It's horrific. And they're like bleeding out of their face. They're crumpling to the ground. They're screaming and dying. And it's this horrific scene. And Azor Ahai is basically he's carving the face of the tree because it's implied that the face carving is a defilement. So it's like, well, let's go with it. Okay. And Nissa Nissa is so similar to the tree in myth, it almost makes sense. Think of Daemon Targaryen at Harrenhal carving up the weirwood tree with his Valyrian steel sword. I think George has been hinting at something like this for a long time. I just don't know if it's figurative. Like, oh, Azor Ahai carved up the weirwood tree by sending his dragon spirit into it. I don't know if he stabbed the tree with a sword, but it made sense for this plot. So that's what I've got. This is the long night act. He's carving up the tree face. The green men are dying. Okay. And Nissa Nissa is dying too, because this is her tree. She is the queen of Winterfell. This is happening in the Winterfell Godswood. This is like the defilement of the Winterfell tree. So the green men are dying. This is how Nissa Nissa dies. Okay. And the people that escape are essentially the groom, Eldrick. He's watching his wife, his wife to be essentially murdered in front of him. He's taken prisoner or he's wounded, probably wounded, I guess, by his brother. Like his brother jumps out, and hits him with the sword. He doesn't die, but he's on the ground. He can't do anything. Something like that, right? He's maybe saved by some elves. But the point is, because this was all timed to a magical alignment, a celestial alignment rather, because the elves were trying to do a ritual, What Azor Ahai is doing is he's crashing it. He doesn't understand the forces that he's messing with, but he thinks he does, and he's under the influence of this Lovecraftian meteor whisper, okay? And so when he does this at this time, this is what causes the long night. I don't know how much you want to friggin' explain of this, but the audience will figure it out. If there's an eclipse happening and then all this dark magic happens, we're going to see an explosion in the sky of some kind. And so then we're going to get the meteors, the darkness fall. I don't even know. You don't even need meteors, to be honest. That's wish fulfillment. You could do it without meteors. It could simply be that, this ritual that's happening causes the eclipse to just stay. Or maybe the black clouds spread out from the moon and the sky turns dark. It's not really important. The important part is that the long night falls, and fleeing from the scene are the groom, Eldrick, and remember the Stark brother. The Starks were twins. So Nissa Stark that just got killed, her brother was also there. So you've got these two brothers, heroic brothers, that are fleeing. One is Brandon Stark, and one is Eldrick Dane. So I'm just working with George's names, obviously. So yeah, they're fleeing the scene as Azor Ahai is essentially opening a dark portal to the stars. That's how I would do it. I'd have some sort of you'd be in the Godswood and looking up and you'd see the darkness happening right overhead. You'd get the idea that there is some connection. Azor Ahai, by the way, is transformed because what he's doing is he's sticking his sword into after he carves the face, and I know I'm just getting carried away here, but whatever. He carves the face, then he stabs the tree with a final thrust. Nissa dies. Okay. And then he is the magic is like flowing through. He's getting like Palpatines. He's turning old, blood ravened, if you want, kind of corpse like. So at the end of this, he has invaded the Weirwood Net and he is now the king of winter. He's the first Night King. He's the king of winter. He is in control of the Weirwood Net. And all of these green men that he's just killed are now the others. Their spirits have become the others, and they are in thrall to Azor Ahai, Knights, King of Winter. That's how I do it. So this is how he becomes Night's King. He's the Lord of Winterfell and the King of Winter, whatever. And he's now sending these green men who are now, they're in thrall to him. They don't want to be the others. He's made them the others, right? Through this ritual or whatever. And so now it's the long night and they are moving south and the army, armies of men can't stand against them. I don't know how much you want to go into that. But the point is our two brothers have to rally with the children of the forest and do the last hero expedition. They need to go north and do something resembling the last hero myth to end the long night and form the first night's watch. So here's the cherry on the top. Are you ready? So, in order to be the heroes, in order for these two, Bran the Builder and Eldrick Dane, to be the hero, they actually have to become the guy tied to the tree. So in my story, there's going to be two of them. But the guy that the children of the forest tied to the tree and they turned his eyes blue, we all think that's the Night King, right? Not exactly. Not exactly. Brandon and Eldrick, what they have to do is they have to become kind of like cold hands. This is like extension of green zombie theory, but they're essentially becoming otherized. It's more like the show where they're getting turned into ice people so that they can go north and fight the others. So these are ice people on the side of good because that's, send a wolf to kill a wolf, whatever, right? So they're making a horrible sacrifice. It's noble. So the one guy, remember, Eldrick Dane, he's the groom. His wife is dead, but they believe that her spirit is like captive to this evil guy, Azor Ahai. So we need to free her from entrapment. Her spirit is captive in Winterfell. And Bran the Builder, he wants to get Winterfell back and free his sister, and they've got all kinds of motives. So they are willingly being tied to the tree. the children are transforming them into these ice people. Okay. And here's the purpose. Eldrick, as an ice person, can now finally marry Nissa because she has become Night's queen. She's like a frozen ghost of some kind, right? She can, let's partially substantiate herself at some point or something like that. But the point is, like, he's going to still marry his bride, but he can only do it by turning into an icy figure. Okay. And yeah, I had to go into more detail on this because that's the only way I could really sell it. But yeah, forgive me for my indulgence. This is why I put it last. But yeah, he becomes icy. And I think this is what John and Danny might do. One or both of them might become Knights, King, or Queen so that they can lead the others back into the Weirwood net or whatever, right? I've said that many times. So this is similar. The resolution of this movie is going to be that, remember, the others are victims. They are green men who were killed. They were under the thrall of evil Azor Ahai. So after we defeat Azor Ahai, we have to give these frozen others a home. They might even be the same refugees from all the way back from Battle Isle. Those green seers that came to Winterfell and sat in the Weirwood thrones. Maybe they were turned into the others. Okay. They're basically the same as green men. And so yeah, they need to be caretaken. And so we have Nissa Night's Queen, this cold, dead spirit who was wrongly murdered, and her bride, Eldrick Dane, who has become a kind of Night's King so that they can collectively lead the others north into the frozen lands where they won't harm the living. This was part of the truce. Brandon the Builder had to become icy so he could build the wall that will enforce the truce and keep the others and the living apart for all time. And in order to build the wall, he had to essentially entomb himself inside of it. And that's what the Black Gate is. So now we've created the wall. Bran the Builder built the wall with ice magic and sacrificed himself, as all the heroes do. And he becomes the Black Gate. So he's the talking face. So when Bran Stark goes through the Black Gate, there you go. That's why the tear, because he's eating his ancestor and sending him on a dark road, which that might be true anyway. We've all speculated about who the Black Gate is. It's probably, I mean, it could be Bran the Builder. I mean, that's my answer. So that is what I've got for you, more or less. I'm sure there are some holes in there. I've been revamping this over the past couple days. This is just a sketch. This is just to try to show you that a Dawn Age trilogy could be interesting. That's all. So you could disagree with any of this or change any of this. I'm just trying to give you enough, whether you're you, the audience, or you, the HBO. I keep saying it. They're not going to hire me, guys. Probably not going to happen. But look, it could be interesting. You could do a Dawn Age trilogy that's pretty freaking cool, wild, crazy, hair-raising, very intense, blood magic rituals left and right. Even the good guy magic is freaky and weird. And it creates this hybrid system of humans and children living together. So essentially, the first movie creates this teamwork between the children, the elves and the humans. In the second movie, it's challenged by the Bloodstone Emperor, and we gain a new member of the Alliance, the Hightowers and Danes. And then in the third movie, we're essentially the old evil from the second movie is coming back around and causing the big problem that we know has to happen, the Long Night and the others. And to deal with it, we have the formation of Winterfell, the Wall, and I guess the Night's Watch too. So, because I skipped over the fighting part, it's kind of boring, but obviously we've got to fight to some extent. We got to fight to get to Winterfell, and people will have to do brave things. And yeah. What if the wildlings were a group from the first version of the Watch that got lost beyond the wall, eventually forming a settlement and forgetting? Yeah, so you could work in the origin of the wildlings too. Perhaps they are the people that don't, again, maybe they don't, at first they don't like the reliance on the children, or they have some disagreement about something.
I haven't really thought that one out, so it's hard to give you a good answer for that off the top of my head. But yeah, you could work in an origin for the wildlings as well. I'm messing with the timelines, Alicia Kingston. No, what I'm talking about, the pact, and I'm even violating my own theories timeline. I'm not really worried about that. I'm just trying to if I was making a movie, you have to prioritize the movie. And this is why changes always get made. We always bitch about canon and this and that, but like when you're making a show and a movie, you have to prioritize the story that you're telling. And once you have a story going, its momentum is going to require certain things to move around. So I didn't want everything to happen all at once. We have 3 movies. So there's the corruption of the Weirwood net happens gradually in stages from different things. But yeah. The bottom line is that the first men are driven into Westeros by need, and the elves end up needing the humans to help them manage the Weirwood net. So they come up with a symbiotic agreement, and that is the good thing that is defended and persists through the movies. So, yeah, Megan Corker, that's exactly the legend I'm talking about, that the first Hightowers slew dragons. Check out my Origins of Old Town video. I stitched all that stuff together as convincingly as I could. So yeah, there you go. I hope this has been entertaining and better than the other stream I did. I think it was. So yeah, mostly again, what I'm trying to do is give you guys hope that these movies. I mean, forget all this wacky Dawn H stuff. You know, Robert's Rebellion, The Doom, Nymeria's Conquest. These are rock solid things. They should do all of those things. If they make one movie and it's successful and they keep making movies, they should plow through all that stuff. I don't see why they wouldn't. So I look forward to seeing it happen. Maybe some of these things will happen. Maybe we'll see even better stuff happen. So yeah, I just want to get everybody at least entertaining the possibility that it might not suck, because it doesn't have to suck. It might be good. So, all right, guys, I'll see you on Sunday. And you've been a beautiful audience. So, thank you very much for hanging out with me while I threw these ideas out again. Oh, what happened to the one dragon in the story? Good question. So I have a couple ideas. He could be defeated in the second movie, and that's all we have of it. Um, or maybe the dragon is like freed from the enslavement of the Bloodstone Emperor. Maybe the dragon helps the journey north in the last movie when they do the last hero journey into the Cold Lands. Maybe the dragon's not very big. It's not big enough to kill all the others and stuff, but it's like can fly them north, into the heart of Winterfell or whatever. So I did forget that thread. You could work that in, something like that. So yeah, limited dragon presence is the point. Not much, just a little. Not the focal point. Where does Garth's green peen fit into these movies? Well, one of these people is. I mean, there's green men everywhere. Garth the Green is really just a legend about green men. So, like the fact that the green men are kings everywhere, like when you clean up the second movie, I guess that's where it would be. Because remember, it's the Reach that went dark from Battle Isle. So once we've cured that infection, there'll be a new Green King in that area. So I guess we made a Durand and Weir King in the first movie. Maybe there'd be a Garth Weir King in the second movie. That would be the Reach, Green Hands guy. So there you go. I guess I'll do a poll real quick. Let's see here. Maynard, if you're out there, I will send it up the flag. I'll ask you to. Oh, I already said I was going to quit. No, he's not. He already left. I'll do the poll. Let's see. Ask a question. So, which idea? We'll just do this really quick. We've had RR's Robert's Rebellion. Second one is the Dune. Third one is Nymeria. So you can answer this, which one do you want to see based on your own opinion or based on the presentations that I just did? Which one of my ideas did you like better? Doesn't really matter to me. Just what are you feeling the most after that? I'm torn. I like all the ideas, so I'm pretty torn. I appreciate the Dawn Age support. That's mostly fun. I would be pleasantly surprised if they do something like that. It's a lot more likely that they will do stuff closer to the Game of Thrones timeline. Obviously, Robert's Rebellion is the most closely tied to Game of Thrones. The Doom is I really think this Doom idea is incredible. If you don't have the inside job part, there's a lot less there. You might look at it and go, "Well, where's the movie?" Um, so I feel like the Doom is the one I have a lot of personal ownership over, besides the Dawn Age one. Nymeria's that's been around for a long time, and even before HBO started working on it, and they have worked on it a little bit. And Robert's Rebellion, that's an obvious one. So yeah. So 43 for Dawn Age, 18 for Nymeria, 23 for Doom, 16 for Robert's Rebellion. Yeah, I appreciate the support for all these ideas. I think they're all super solid. And I also mentioned Aegon's Conquest already has a writer attached to it, Manson Tomlin. And supposedly that's going to be for a TV show, but that could easily be changed to a movie now that they are doing movies. I actually think that would be better suited for a pair of movies. And Matson, if you're watching, I would cut it in half at Harrenhal, at the burning of Harrenhal, and let Aegon's burning of Harrenhal be a kind of a dark Aegon moment. Like we want him to win and defeat Black Heron, but once we see it happen, we're like, oh god, this is kind of scary. Who is this Aegon guy? So that's where I'd cut the first movie. And then I'd move Rhaenys' Death in Dorne from 9 AC. I'd move that up into the second movie so it catches people by surprise. And that's really all I got. The rest of it was pretty straightforward. So as far as my ideas for the Conquest, it's just running through the plot. I'm sure you'll do great. Matson Tomlin seems like a pretty cool dude. Yeah, I mean, I might think about working backward. If you notice, we started most recent with Robert's Rebellion, and then we moved back in time, the Doom, Nymeria, Dawn Age. So, you know, I might do it that way if I were in charge. It kind of makes sense. Because one leads to the other. Once you see the Doom and you've seen Valyria, you might be more curious about Valyria. So give me more Valyria. Well, the Nymeria trilogy gives you 300 dragons in a fight. Because the Doom doesn't actually have big dragon fights. You could maybe work in some squabbles, but there's no wars. So there's dragons around, but they're in the background. It's more about prophecy and politics and things. So the Doom movie would whet the appetite for the Nymeria trilogy, where we see full bore Valyria. And once we see the Nymeria trilogy go to Sothorios, that gives us a taste for that Dawn Age movie because we're getting into hybrids and weird stuff like that. So there you go. Thanks for the votes, everyone. I appreciate that. Appreciate the participation. 400 watching, 55 votes. Come on, y'all. Let me get some more votes. I mean, if you want to. Sorry, you don't have to feel pressured. I feel bad now. If you want to vote, you can. It's not too late to rock the ballot. Oh, look, Robert's Rebellion is gaining steam. So is the Doom. Nymeria movies are going to be sweet too. And please do click the like while you're here, 400 people. Please do click the like. And if I would love to hear from you about these ideas. I'm sorry that I did read the comments on the first stream, but they're gone now because I took it down. So um, let me know what you think, your own ideas for a movie, what you think of my ideas, how you're feeling, if you need to vent a little bit. When this stream is over in a second, just hit the refresh button and then you'll be able to leave a comment below the stream. And leaving a comment right after the stream helps the stream get spread around by YouTube. So I would appreciate that. Of course, you can drop the link to your channel, Alicia Kingston. Absolutely. drop it away. If especially let us know what you're working on too, man. That'd be cool. The Doom movie would be good. Intro to the Aegon show. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that's another thing is like some of this will be developed in like the Duncan Egg develops Blackfire Rebellions, Varys and Illyrio's developed by the Robert's Rebellion movie, on and on and on and on. So yeah, there's a lot of tying in between these. There we go. There's the Alicia Kingston link. More good A Song of Ice and Fire content. And yeah, let me know what you're working on, and I'll shout it out. Oh yeah, there's that Valerian ballad about two lovers embracing as the doomfires consume them. Yeah, we could see that happening as Aenar and Daenerys are watching the glow on the horizon, and the Valerians in their ships closer to Valeria, they're watching the thing happen. We could cut that in with these Valerians. They're not all bad, maybe. So yeah, that would be cool. Be a good ending. Like Pompeii, exactly. Exactly right. It's an obvious comparison. Probably should have said something. I talk random nerd nonsense with my friends. Marvel, Penguin. Oh, okay. So all kinds of stuff. Game of Thrones, Hot D, many other nerd things. Also have an original Creepy Stories playlist with my writers group. Okay, so there you go. Thanks for dropping the link. 40 subs away from 1K. So come on, guys. Let's help out. That would be cool. Yeah, there was definitely love and beauty in Valeria. There was that ecologist, right? Having the crazy garden, the glass gardens at the top of a tower with magical plants and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there'll be some note of tragedy to Valeria crumbling, but like, a little less genocide. So here's our poll. That looks more reflective to me. 30 for the Doom, 29 for the Doom, Dawn Age 33. Cool. Well, thanks for voting, guys. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream. And yeah, I will see you on Sunday with more. I'm not going to spoil the surprise. I need to confirm my guest, but it's going to be a lore summit on Sunday if everything goes well. Michael talks about stuff. Check your Discord messages. Okay, see you later.